Greetings, wrestling fans, and welcome to Fannin's Flashbacks, the podcast that nobody asked for, but I'm going to give it to you anyway. This podcast is going to cover tales from IWA Mid-South during my 12 years with the company, and it will be a part of the VNMVS Podcast Network. This podcast is intended for mature audiences only due to the foul language and graphic details about deathmatch wrestling that it will contain. This will be your backstage pass to get a peek behind the curtain at what led to the downfall of the craziest independent wrestling promotion of the late 1990s, early 2000s. And without any further ado, Nick Manawa, hit the music. Greetings, wrestling fans, and welcome to episode 24 of Fannin's Flashbacks. It's the podcast nobody asked for, but I decided to give it to you anyway. These are tales from my time in IWA Mid-South from 1997 to 2009, and today we are also going to be flashing all the way back to this past weekend when I returned to the wrestling business. I am joined today by Jeremy Spears, Prophet of Ash Video, whatever you want to call him, just pay him and he'll answer your call. But he is the best videographer in the business today. He did IWA shows going as far back as to when I was still there. He does all the shows around Indianapolis these days, and he is doing this podcast for IWTV. That's right. Fannin's Flashbacks is getting on to the IWTV streaming service this week. Previous episodes and all episodes going forward will eventually be available on IWTV and have matches, angles, promos that we talk about on the episode mixed into the episode to add to the viewing experience. I couldn't be more excited about this opportunity to make a little money, so turn on those podcasts and let it run if you have an IWTV subscription, and if you don't, sign up now. Prophet of Ash, how the hell are you doing tonight?
Imagine if I just held it like that for 2 hours, like a fucking sociopath. I started to wonder how long I was actually going to let that bit roll. And I'm like, man, my arm is tired after this weekend. I don't know how long to roll with this.
You should be tired after all the work you put in with all those shows and getting them turned around so fast. It was something else.
What a weekend. I know that you probably were feeling it too, but after a weekend like that, and then you're back at the 9-to-5 job Monday morning, and you're just trying to contextualize everything that you went through over the weekend. And it's like, oh yeah, I was working with Taka Michinoku last night in front of about 500 people. What the fuck does that mean?
Yeah, I didn't have that experience, but yes, all day yesterday, I sat on my, which was, we're recording this Monday night. So when I sat on my couch all day Sunday, I think I got home. I drove straight back from Indianapolis after the Wrestle Art show. So I ended up getting home my time, like 2:30 in the morning. Probably slept till about 10 in the morning, then got up, and I did not move off the couch. I was grumpy. The wife is like, are you even going to go to work tomorrow? And I'm like, it's 50-50. I don't know. This might have to be a call-off situation. But, went to bed. The alarm went off at 4 a.m. this morning. And I was like, well, got to go to work. Got to pay the bills. So it was a little rough.
I was regretting it all day today of just, man, why did I do this to myself? I have the PTO. Why did I not plan more accordingly? Because in addition to already having BLP on IWTV on Sunday, which is fucking insane, that's not what normal people do, the main event of Naptown was up less than 2 hours after it ended. It was already ready to be streamed. And literally nobody in the venue, everybody thought I was doing a rib. Everybody thought I was just fucking with them. Main event on YouTube tonight. Main event on YouTube tonight. They thought I was fucking ribbing them. No, the Japanese media fucking wanted that main event. And the Japanese media gets what they ask for when they ask for it. So main event of NAP was up, I think it was like an hour and a half. And it was in Josh's DMs of, here you go, edited. For 3 cameras, 4K.
Not to cut you off, but I want to talk about this for a second. how many Japanese media was there for that?
Um, there was a there wasn't much in attendance, but I've been hit up by two people, and Josh has been hit up by a few already. And there was a few different news outlets in Japan that wanted both footage and pictures like immediately, because we were originally going to be live streaming, and live streaming just didn't happen. It just didn't work for reasons. And I told him, like, well, my turnaround. I can expedite even my turnaround. And the question was, how the hell do you expedite your turnaround? Well, you guys see what happens when I expedite my turnaround.
Okay, that's impressive. But you know, the first shoot job I had after my time in IWA, some folks know I went to work for the Chicago Cubs up here in Chicago, where I'm living now. And a few years into my time with the Cubs, I ended up getting put on the visitor clubhouse door for
Okay.
all the games. And so I'd have to check in all the media and let the media up into the clubhouse. And anytime we played a team that had a Japanese player on it, it would just be mayhem. Because normally, like, I worked it for the Yankees, and the Yankees had a lot of media.
For
But
sure.
other than the Yankees, pretty much you would have maybe one TV guy, maybe two newspaper guys, and if it was like in the same division as the Cubs, you might also get a radio. Like you might end up with four if it was like St. Louis or Milwaukee or Detroit,
Right.
something that was close. If it was well, Dodgers had their a large contingent too, but if it was like the Angels or the A's or the Mariners, somebody from like far away, you might have two media members that I'd have to check in. But if a team had a Japanese player, there would be at least 10 Japanese media members going into that clubhouse post game. And it was just I'd have to remember to take extra sheets to sign everybody in if there was a Japanese player, because you with what they would
You're
give
not set up
me
for that.
normally, in so they take their stuff seriously. So I'm not surprised at all to hear that, they were real excited and anxious to get the footage of Taka. I'm surprised there wasn't more there in person based on my experience, but independent wrestling probably not as budget friendly for the media as MLB is. So
Well, and at nap shows, I kind of question it when I just see extra people around with cameras. Like, you're not one of mine. Who are you? And 90% of the time that they're there for a reason. And NAP has a lot of community outreach stuff going on too. So it might be somebody shooting for the parks department. It's like, oh, okay, cool. I'll stay out of your way. Just don't walk through my hard cam. Okay, cool. I got you. Well, last night there was somebody there. I don't know what he was doing. He had a bigger but older camera. I don't know what he was doing, but he wasn't on my side, so I didn't ask any questions. He stayed out of my way.
well, he knows who runs the place.
Yeah, especially how it was yesterday, because I, it was I was grumpy and tired and social battery on E before I got there, so it was just stay clear and let me do my thing.
Right.
So how are we starting this? Are we doing the normal how did I how did I become a wrestling fan? How did I get started in IWA?
Uh,
Do I get the full treatment?
I suppose I thought you were going to be driving this. So
I thought you were
uh,
going to be driving this. Who's driving this?
I thought you were the one that asked for this opportunity. So
Do we
that's
do we
what,
got Ian driving for once?
God, no, I hope not.
Okay.
You pop that up like Manawa popped up Jimmy Jacobs, and this interview's over now.
Oh, Ian just pops in and, hey, can I borrow $15?
No, not adding it to the tab. Sorry, not happening. Um,
Your tab might be one of the few people in the world that has a bigger tab than I do.
I would, I hate to say that I would hope so, but for your sake, I would definitely hope so.
Mine was at over 5 grand.
Well, that was just me getting the fire the fire escape or fire exit stuff ready to get back into the barn in Charlestown. That was over
Yeah,
that. So yeah,
we
I've got you beat probably tenfold then.
we were in a crowded car and we were playing the Who Does Ian Runt Know the Most Money 2 game, and it totaled up. I'm like, yeah, I think I win because I think I'm over all of you guys, but I don't know if that's a badge of honor to wear or not.
Definitely not. Definitely not.
But like a lot of guys say, it's it's a hard thing to process of looking back any way negatively, because like a lot of guys, it was a shitload of exposure for me, and it was a shitload. Like I couldn't do what I did last night with Nap, where I turned it around in an hour and a half, if it wasn't for doing a show every Thursday, every Saturday, where I don't have the option of falling behind. I just have to do this quickly because I'm doing 2 shows a week that are pumped out MP4, DVD, and Blu-ray, because I was a sociopath and I did DVD and Blu-ray twice a week, every week for 3.5 years, because that's what you do.
Yeah, I
And
mean there's so many of us that have the stories of, we would not have nobody else would have given us the opportunity. And so I guess that's how he gets your loyalty, because he's he knows he's the only one that's given out the opportunity that he's giving out. And so he takes advantage of that. But, that doesn't justify it by any means. But yeah, I can sit here and I can tell you right now, I never would have I never would have been in the ring with Dusty Rhodes. I never would have been in the ring with Terry Funk. I wouldn't have been managing Chris Candido. I wouldn't have been hanging around Tracy Smothers. I wouldn't have gotten to do any of the things that the coolest stories that I have in my life, are because of IWA Mid South and the opportunities that I was given. I mean, just look at now. I've been putting out there for a couple of months now that I'm ready to come back. I'm ready to start doing shows again. And I got hooked up with Connor Hopkins right away through Nick Manawa. And he's been asking everywhere that he works. I've been putting feelers out. Manawa's been putting feelers out for me. And, Wrestle Arts was the only place that said, yeah, sure, let's do it. That'd be great. And then, I had to twist the arm a little bit to get onto the BLP show and get to do the stuff with Mickey. And I I don't know if I don't know how often they run. I don't know if nothing was said about bringing me back at any point in time with that. So, Wrestle Arts is the only. So nobody. It's not like I'm just rolling in opportunities here. So I owe Ian that much with having that opportunity, but you know, there's there was a whole hell of a lot of negative that came with it.
yeah, and I don't think anybody ever worked for Ian for a significant amount of time that didn't walk away with a little bit of PTSD. And you have to compartmentalize a little bit of, oh yeah, I can look back and I can see the good things, and I cannot dwell on the bad things, because all you end up doing, as you know, after being in your own personal hell for it for 16 years, you can dwell on it until forever. It doesn't make it any better. And you just kind of have to compartmentalize of, yeah, that kind of sucked, but I lived through it. I'm good. I had really cool opportunities. I had really cool times, and we can move on. We can remember good times, and we can laugh at dark humor at the bad times.
Yeah,
But
the this podcast has been very therapeutic for things like that, where gives a platform to get some of the hurt feelings off my chest, gives me a platform for that. And you know, I've said it on social media the last few days. I've said it since June. You know, I there was a lot of, like you said, PTSD to work through. And this weekend a lot of folks were like, "Oh, hey, have you watched our shows before? Have you seen this person before? Have you seen that person before?" I'm like, "I have not watched a damn thing." And I couldn't bring myself to watch, and it's like I'd seen a couple of the GCW shows that I'd went to, and I watched, the shows this weekend. And it's it's hard to fully jump back in with you're a little timid to jump all the way back in. And we'll we'll see how it goes. But this past weekend was a lot of fun, and took a lot of anxiety away. There was quite a few moments where, especially when I ate shit and tripped and fell on Friday night, there was a large part of me, more than just my large ass stomach, as I was watching the video of beached whale laying on the floor there waiting to be harpooned or something. But there was at least a good 10 seconds that I laid there going, I don't know if I want to get up and keep and keep going. I I thought for a second, I thought that was going to be my shockmaster moment, and it was going to be over with that quickly. But
was that
I was,
before or after Mickey walks up and goes, Jim, why are you on the floor?
in all honesty, I didn't even hear it at the time because I was in my own head and had so many things swirling around in my own head. I didn't even hear her say that. But then, like, Nick brought it up afterwards, and then
And
when
she
I
said it
then when I
loud as
watched
hell into the microphone, too.
and then when I watched it back on IWTV and listened to you know Manawa on the floor laughing about it. And I think he jinxed me, because I went back and watching the video, and you know it's not in post. They were recording it live, and as I'm going around the ring, he's going, "Be careful, Jim. You ain't done this in 16 years. Be careful. Be careful." And then Wipeout City. So I'm blaming Manawa for putting the bad juju out there, and it gobbled me up and
And I had
almost
to see,
shockmastered me.
I had to edit around it to make sure that I got the bump because even though I was right on top of you, I was over here shooting Mickey and Nate doing whatever it was that they're doing. And I just turn around and you're on the ground. And as I turn around and realize that you're on the ground and realize that you've possibly done something that I've completely missed, Mickey comes up and goes, Jim, why are you on the ground? And it almost popped me. Like I was like, and then you pulled yourself up, and Nate comes walking over, just looks at you, and we continue the walk and brawl all around.
Yeah, it was. I still don't know exactly what happened there. I know I was going backwards, and I could feel that I didn't quite have my balance. And so then I turned around, and like as I turned to try to be going forward, I think it took my momentum going the wrong way. And then I tried to, like, not run over Mickey because she was right there. And then I saw you. And then I saw like a couple of other photographers, and at IWA we didn't have people ringside.
No.
I'd have the entire ringside to myself, so I didn't have to like go around obstacles and avoid people. So when I turned around and then I saw a bunch of people and I was already off balance, and I'm like, I can't save myself, and I just too much weight and it pulled me down.
So
But
I can actually trump your motherfucker of a bump. A couple of years ago, I was shooting a show for Toolman. Toolman runs out of Batavia, Ohio now, Spot Monkey. I meant to grab you and take you and just say, Jim, Toolman, Jim, because you probably won't even recognize him these days. But I was shooting a Toolman show, and I'm shooting the entrances, walking backwards. The guy's walking with me, so I'm focused on him. Completely forget that there's ring steps there, and I went whoosh over the ring steps backwards, landed kidney first on the second step, and then rolled down to the first step. And I had this hematoma that lasted like a month and a half that went all the way down my side onto my hip. It was disgusting. It was purple at one point. It
mm,
was, and it hurt like a bitch. But I pulled myself back up. I had a wrestler working my second roam, and he looks at me and goes, "You good?" I go, he goes, "Oh." But I pulled myself up and I shot the second entrance and I shot the match. And then I went over and I grabbed my bottle of water and I said, Sid, you're going to shoot the next half a match or so because I need a second.
yeah, those ring steps are, you hit them the wrong way, and yeah, you'll definitely mess yourself up like that. And
And even
I can also blame my shoot boss for this too. Now that I'm thinking of it, because as I left on Thursday, and I had taken Friday off work, and as I was leaving on Thursday, he's like, "Please don't embarrass yourself, and please do not embarrass me." And I was like, "Well, no one knows you. I don't like talk about my shoot job or anything. So no one knows that you exist. So you're fine." And I was like, "But odds are I'm going to embarrass myself." And I did. So
that,
it's all his fault and Nick Manowa's fault. They put it out into the universe, and the universe answered their calls.
I mean, as Jim Fannin, the wrestling manager, you are there to be the butt of the joke. You are there to get your ass beat and get your comeuppance. And Nate didn't get his hands on you, but he didn't need to because you beat your own ass.
Yeah. Yeah.
So Nate was a fun story, and it wasn't supposed to be Nate. It was supposed to be Alice.
Right.
And I was there long before you were on Friday because I wanted to get in there before all the fans were, and that still didn't end up happening. But Nate was there long before you were too, and I had probably about a 15-minute, easily 10-plus minute conversation with him, just catching up, shooting the shit. And one of the things was, "Hey, are you doing anything tonight?" I hadn't looked at the card. Card subject to change. If there's people that I know, whatever. No, I'm not doing anything till tomorrow. Oh, that sucks. I'll yell at Mikey and see if there's a spot open. And he's like, I don't even have my shit with me. I'm like, bullshit, Nate. You're a wrestler. No, I don't even have my shit with me. And I went in, I'm doing all my shit. You get there, we're bullshitting, and I realized, wait a second, it's Nate. What the fuck? Why did you kayfabe me? It was literally me, Mikey, Mikey's wife, and the Hearts were the only people in this room when he was fabing me. It's not like there was fans around to fabe. Like, what the fuck, Nate? Why?
It's the wrestler way. But yeah, that worried me when Mikey had messaged me just a I mean, it was just the week of the show. He messages me, and the message just said, "Big Al just canceled." And so I was waiting for the next message to say, "I can't use you and Mickey," and be like, well, that just throws off everything. But
Everyone's
then he,
come back.
but then he messaged back, and he's like, "Don't say anything, but I'm working on getting a replacement now." And I'm like, "Okay." And then it took like a couple of days before he finally just messaged me and said, and a matter of fact, I got a message from Mikey and I got a message from Nate as I was recording the episode with Bull. And like Nate had tried to call me, and then I saw he texted, but I didn't look at like what the messages said. So then when I got done recording with Bull and I picked up my phone, Mikey just said Nate, and then Nate's text just said it's me. And I was like, oh, that must be what I'm guessing that's the replacement. But I was like, oh, that works.
So we got to spend a lot of quality time in the arena because I was over being out in that sea of people and it was quiet in the arena. Do you think that that helped ease some of your nerves ahead of time, that there was a familiar face and somebody that, because it was just me, you, and Tom, the ring crew guy, were pretty much the only ones in the arena for like an hour and a half,
Yeah,
two
I
hours.
mean, it definitely helped, and I appreciate that because yeah, it was. I got there, and I know I'm nobody, and I had asked Mikey, beforehand. I was like, well, I've got it. I had already bought a ticket for Saturday before I even got booked on any of the shows. I had bought a Saturday ticket because my best friend loves to go to these conventions, and he'll get 20 different people to autograph, photos or their action figures, whatever he's got to get signed. And so, like last year, we had drove over and went to the expo on the Saturday last year, and I saw. I just went up and talked to Claudio Castagnoli, and Claudio didn't even remember me. Even as I was like, I think that last year I had a Nick Manawa t-shirt on, and he was like looking at the shirt and he was like, is that you? Is that who you are? And I'm like, no, I'm not Nick Manawa. And he's like, well, then who are you? And I was like, I managed you in the 8-man tag with Candido and Punk and Nigel and all them. And that still didn't, and then he was just like, oh, yeah, 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 yeah. And I was like, I can tell you're just saying that, but whatever.
Wrestler brain.
Wrestler brain, whatever. And so like that was like all I did at the convention last year. I was just looking forward to seeing Claudio again, knew it hadn't been forever, and then he didn't even remember me. And I was like, oh well, I think that was like one of the moments too that put into my head, I need to start doing something again because nobody remembers. And not that they should, but still, when you're doing this stuff, you got to have at least a little bit of an ego. And then when a guy that you worked with for several years on shows doesn't even remember you, you're like, yeah, I think I need to get my name back out there and start doing some things again and try to have some people remember me. And so
Well,
I was like leaning on the fence of not even wanting to go to the convention this year because I saw that Kingston was listed, and I'm like, it will tear my heart out if I go and see Eddie and it's like Claudio and he doesn't remember me at all. But I had seen Eddie maybe 5, 6 years ago at one of the star casts here in Chicago, and he remembered me then. So I was like, not as fearful. I was like, at least he's seen me more recently than Claudio had. So my buddy's like, well, let's just ride over with me, and we'll have a fun day of it anyway. And so I had went ahead and bought the 1 day Saturday pass to go to the convention or whatever. And so I told Mikey, I was like, I already got the ticket for Saturday, but I'm on your show Friday. Like, are they going to make me buy a ticket to the convention to get it, to get in, to get to your show? I mean, what? And he's like, I'll get you in, but they didn't give me like any kind of a pass or anything. I just walked in and, you know, eventually found Mikey, and he had his wife show me where the ring was, where I like saw you, and
room.
And I was like, I don't want to. Last thing I wanted was to like try to walk around and go into rooms and then have the volunteers be like, where's your wristband? Where's your badge? Where's your pass? And then have to sit there and try to be like well, don't you know who I am? I'm on the wrestling show. And so I didn't even bother even looking around at the convention. I talked a little bit to Bryce because Bryce was right there, one of Mikey's
right there.
guests, and he was right there. So I did chat with Mikey with Bryce for a few minutes, and he recognized me right away, and I was like, well, that's better than Claudio already, so that's good. And we had chatted a little bit, and then, but I just pretty much I'm just going to stay over here because I don't know anybody. I not the most social human being in the world, so it's like I'm just
And there
going
were
to stay to myself.
2,000.
So it was nice to actually like see the familiar face as soon as I walked in. I'm like, okay, there's somebody. And you weren't telling me how much older I was than everybody and how young everybody was, like you were on the internet the week of. You did a lot of damage to me psychologically with your Big Al's was only 3 years old when you quit, and Josh Crane's a legend in the Midwest, and he was still 3 years away from wrestling before you had quit. You've been gone for so damn long. And I'm like, I know. Stop telling me how old I am. I know how old I
Gone
am.
forever.
Like, stop. But yeah, you were a lot better actually at the venue with talking. You didn't put any of those bad negative vibes into the air. So yeah, it was
If
good to see you there.
if you can't fuck with your friends, who can you fuck with?
Yeah, but when I'm already battling imposter syndrome and anxiety and like, should I even be doing this? And then I'm hearing, yeah, your opponent was 3 years old the last time you tried to do this crap. And I'm like,
Yeah, yeah.
but
Well,
how
to be fair,
how
I'm
old
an
was
old
she
fuck
when she
too.
was working IWA? If she was that damn young, was she another Billy
Uh,
Starks where she was like wrestling at 15?
yeah, when I first filmed Alice, she was 16, and she had gear that looked like it was made out of her grandma's couch. And Alice will love that I tell her that. But her gear looked like it was made out of an old lady's couch, and she was literally like either 15 or 16. And I think she started working for IWA when she was either 17 or just about 8, and was there until literally the last. She was one of the last off the Titanic.
Well,
She was very much the same vein of Mickey as the tough girl that's going to do everything. She's going to wrestle the guys. She's going to beat the shit out of the guys. She's not going to slow down. And she's never really worked Mickey either. So I was disappointed in that one. But like you keep saying, oh, nobody remembers me. No, nobody's even going to remember who I was. The thing that you don't realize and that you keep neglecting is the people that are running a lot of the things now, myself included, Mikey, Connor, were the people in the crowd when you were running shit. Mikey was an IWA regular. I was in the crowd all the time. Connor was in the crowd. There's Josh was an IWA fan. Like top star on the Indies now was an IWA fan back then. So
well, I knew
the
Mikey
people,
was because that was why I reached out to Mikey. I leaned into that IWA connection in order to do it because and we could have done a whole lot with the Mickey story and we just didn't. And it's neither here nor there, especially now that it's over. But there was an opportunity, like we could have told a really good story because when I started the angle with Mickey, that the first time in Highland, which was our main venue and our our ECW arena show basically for every month was Highland.
Right.
And the first time we did the angle in Highland was the night that I put on the Mickey for the Gold t-shirt and had the flowers and the candy and did the Carlton dance and all this stuff. But Mikey was the one who gave me the Mickey for the Gold t-shirt to wear that night. And so when I reached out to him, I'm like, Mikey, I'm booked to be on Wrestle Arts. I'm going to be in Indianapolis anyway. Mickey is available. Is there any chance that, can you put Mickey on the show and use me, let me manage her, cross off that bucket list item? And, we got that whole history where you were the one to give me the t-shirt and you get to be the one to finish the story for me. And he was like, oh, that's cool. Let me reach out to Mickey and try to get this done. And, Mickey worked with him, agreed to come in because she had to wrestle in Berwyn the next night, which ended up being a hell of a show to be on.
Yeah. That's her story for part 2.
Yeah. And, so it was just a perfect storm of events that led to the possibility even happening. And so then when he put her against Big Al, and granted, I didn't know a whole lot about her, but I did know there was that IWA connection and the fact that, she was basically the next Mickey, the way she was brought into it and everything. So I was like, this is like perfect. This is everything is just fallen into place to pull this off. And we could have told one hell of a story there. And it just, for whatever reason, it just didn't end up happening. And I mean, he had Muda and Chono and Medusa and Hacksaw, he had all these huge names that he had to hype and promote at every opportunity because he had, I don't even want to know how much money,
a lot of money.
All that cost, and then the Hearts, the Smiths, however, the Heart Smiths, whatever we want to call, the Bulldogs, and then Taka at sort of like the last minute and everything. So, it just got to the point where there was just so much going on that there wasn't time to really tell that story. And then the fact that the show wasn't even going to start till, 9:00 was the scheduled bell time. I don't even know what time it actually did start, but it was not 9:00. And so, by the time we go out there, he's like, you can cut a promo, but keep it to like a couple minutes. And as anybody that's listened to any episode of this podcast, I can't say my name in 2 minutes without going off onto 14 different tangents and 12 different stories and turning it into 20 minutes. So there was no way I could go out there and really get the full story told in 2 minutes. And so it was a missed opportunity, and it's the way things go. But at least that item is now crossed off the bucket list. If I don't have to beg and plead anymore for it, it happened. Would love for it to happen more than just the one time, but at least it happened the one time, and I can start moving on to other items on the bucket list and try to get them all checked off. So.
And then when you come out there, you're cutting your promo and you have a heckler, and I'm just thinking, oh God, Jim is going to rip this guy apart. And luckily you did it. Luckily you kept it nice and you didn't go for the throat. And I thought that you were going to get us all canceled.
Well, that was the thing, Mikey pretty much told us we could do whatever we wanted, but no plunder, stay within the guardrails, no cussing,
no ladder.
So with those three things in place, he was like, "Do not lose me this building. I like doing this. I like having this show every year." It's like, "Don't lose me the building. Follow these three things." So, you know, and I could tell when I came out, that crowd did not know who I was. I
No,
had
it was a conviction
I
crowd.
had I had three friends in the crowd, and then there was like two people that I knew from IW, like had gone to Chicago land IWA shows. So there was five people that I knew who I was. And so I tried to like I started the promo by facing them and like looking at them to try to like center myself and get into it. And then I had like the heckler with like, and so I had to I like paused for a second before I had like my promo in my head. I had the heckler, so it like stopped me for a few seconds, and then I was like, well, I'm going to address some of it. And I was like, I know that you guys have no idea who I am, so I'm going to tell you who I am. But I also tried to not go like Paul Heyman on it with like a because wasn't he like always doing the allow me to introduce myself and yada yada. I was like trying not to go with that route because my best friend that ended up going on Saturday, but he didn't make the trip. He couldn't get off work to make it on the Friday night. But like for 2 months, all I've heard from him, because he just watches like AEW and WWF. The only thing I've heard out of him for 2 months: buy a blue suit, buy a red tie, go out there and act like Paul Heyman. And I'm like, that is not what I freaking do. Okay. I do not go out and rip people off. I am my own person. I have my own thing. I have my own shtick, and I'm not gonna, impersonate somebody else that is already on TV because then
Yeah,
because then that just makes me look like an even bigger idiot than me falling on my ass and eating shit and dying 3 minutes into the match. But
you
so I was like,
become Kamala Junior, Junior, Junior.
yeah, I don't want to be like that. So then I like almost found myself almost ripping off that line because it's been in my head for like, you know, 2 damn months that my best friend's telling me to act like him. And I like stopped short of like saying it word for word. And then it's like, okay, here's and I think I kept it under 2 minutes with the promo, right around. For me, it was pretty close to actually hitting the 2 minutes. So I was like happy with that. At least did a little bit. I didn't want to, I hadn't asked for like the hardest part for me so far with these two shows, and like it's only two shows, so hopefully it gets better. But the hardest part is, when you go from the position I was in where I was the boss and I could just go out there and do whatever I wanted, and I only had to answer to myself because I knew Ian wasn't paying attention. So as long as he wasn't out
Right.
there in the ring, I could do whatever the fuck I wanted to do, and I would only have to answer to myself. And so I'd call my own shots, make my own angles, do what I wanted, and had fun when I was doing that. But then, I'm not in that position on these shows. So
No,
I'm like, I need to do what the boss tells me to do. And it's very hard when for 12 years the only experience you have is one way, and then you see that you're put into a different position and have to do a whole different set of things, you know, and like I at Wrestle Arts, they just kept looking at me like, you don't have to ask me for permission for that. And I'm like, well, I don't know what your stance is on it. And I do not want to go out there and say something like I want to be here. I want to do this. So I do not want to go out there and just do what I would normally say, say what I would normally
right.
say, and then be like, whoa, we don't mention that. We don't do that here or whatever. So I was sitting there going, well, can I say this? Can I say that, And at Wrestle Arts, I was sitting there going, okay, they told me go out there, cut a promo, let the people know who you are. And so the first thing out of my mouth was, can I mention IWA Mid South? And they were like, Prophet was like, I was in IWA Mid South. I liked IWA Mid South. I say IWA Mid South. That's how can you say who you are without saying IWA Mid South? And I'm like,
Right, right.
well, the night before I just said, I used to run this state and you know, and I had a lot of champions, but I, didn't name drop anybody, didn't name drop any companies. And he was like, you have my approval. You don't have to ask for it. Say it because that's who you are. And I'm like, okay. So I got to, I'm like, so I was like, so I can mention Ted Petty Invitational? And he's like, yes. It's like, I can mention King of the Death Matches? And he was like, yes. And I'm like, I can mention CM Punk, Tracy Smothers, Chris Candido. And he was like, yeah, say it. So, at Wrestle Arts, I was a lot more comfortable. I had, instead of 3 faces in the crowd that I knew, like the entire, like almost one front row, I had like six of them, all my friends. I had one friend that drove up from North Carolina to come to the show and support me. I had, I had all these seats filled. The Manawas were off onto the side so I could have somebody else on the other side of the building to focus on that was a friendly face that I knew, and just the vibe, everything meshed a lot better on that one. And I think it was the first night got rid of a lot of the jitters and got rid of some of the rust. And so things ended up going a lot smoother that second night. I had a minute or minute 90 seconds more in the promo. And then we got to do another promo out back afterwards that went a little more in depth into it. So, I think the Wrestle Arts went real well, and we're already in a title match next time out. May 23rd, the next time at Wrestle Arts, Connor Hopkins is going for the title. So, it was about as successful a debut as could be for them.
Yeah. So you kind of glossed over it of how late the Black Label show started, and it was allegedly a 9 p.m. start time, and then we got the indie wrestling. Of course, it's going to start late. In all of your time around wrestling, have you ever been to a show where the show started late because they physically couldn't get the doors open? Was that a new one for you? Because it was a new one for me.
Is that what happened?
Yeah, the big door where the fans came through, they physically couldn't get it open. It was stuck, and they physically could not open the door.
So I
So they
had no
couldn't let
idea.
fans in.
Being in the locker room hallway, I had no idea that that's what was even going on. I just knew that
We started late.
I just knew that they were really late getting the doors like.
Physically,
I didn't know physically open, but I knew they were late opening the doors to let fans in, and I just thought it was because the convention was running long, because they had some tremendously long lines at that convention.
Yes,
as
they
I
did.
was coming through, so I just assumed, oh, everybody's still standing in line for to get the autographs and stuff, and they were just waiting to try to get time for as many people to come through. Like, how many people came in while we were just standing around, and it was just like the two of us, and you said like ring guy Kevin or whatever, when it was just us in there. How many different people? I can remember at least 3 different people that like walked in and looked at the ring and was like what's going on in here? And we'd be like, well, there's a wrestling show. And they'd be like, there's a wrestling show tonight? I didn't know there was a wrestling show tonight.
I thought it was just tomorrow.
And it was like, how do you not know that there was a wrestling show tonight? How
In the
do you
same
not
building
know
you're
that?
in.
But so I thought they were just like hoping that, giving more time for the crowd to come from the convention. I had no idea that they couldn't actually get the door open. That's actually pretty funny.
So both
I have not experienced that before.
both of my other camera ops are, one of them is still his normal gig is just doing ring crew, and I'm training him up as a camera op. And then Lindsay, who is on the floor with me, started as a ring crew, ring girl, doing whatever was needed. So all three of us are just standing back, just watching this unfold. Like, this is the funniest shit ever because it's not our problem.
Yeah, I had no idea. The word definitely did not get to where I was backstage. Word did not get to us that we physically can't open the door.
Well, luckily about Nick
They should have
Manoa, an extra 20 minutes.
they should have had Isaiah Broner and Davy Boy Smith Jr. go over there, and those two behemoths should have just been able to shove that thing open in 2 seconds.
No, instead they had Zane Paisley. Zane's the one that ended up getting it open with a pry bar. Like, how
Wow.
is Zane the one that has to fix this?
Well, how was Zane the one that had to jump on to commentate and then grab Manawa as he was? And I had no idea Manawa was even going to make it because that kayfabe motherfucker never even told me. He likes to leave me in the dark whenever he can on stuff like that. So he was like, "Oh well, Bubba, I had to be there to see your return." I'm like, "Well, you could have let me know." And
See, I knew he was coming, but I thought he was already booked for commentary. So when I'm like, oh yeah, where are commentators? And Samara says, oh, commentators are not here. The fuck do you mean commentators are not here? And this is as they're trying to open the doors. Zane's standing there. I said, Zane, commentary? What? Commentary tonight? I guess. Do you not have anyone? No. I turned to you. I said, Jim, you want to call a couple matches? You're already in the zone, getting ready to go out, and you. By that point, you knew Nick was on his way, and you said, "Let me call Nick and find out where he is." It took like 20 minutes to get from the front door of the venue, if he found parking, to where we were. So Nick
yeah,
was probably almost to the parking lot, maybe, but literally, I think the first match was already in the ring before he was in the barricade, which is a testament to how good that still sounded. Because when you say zero prep, he didn't know the card, he didn't know who he was working with, and he walked out, and I think they were Googling stuff at the commentary table as the show was going on just to get notes on whatever they needed to have. But you wouldn't know it if Manoa hadn't said, I literally just walked in the door and apparently I'm doing commentary.
yeah. It was a great job by him. He should be getting booked in every damn promotion within a drive Louisville, Kentucky that runs. There's no excuse for why he's not booked at least twice a weekend, if not three times a weekend. He's the best. No one loves it more than he does. Nobody puts more effort into it than he does. And like you said, he just was coming there to watch me and to just sit back and have fun and watch me because that's how great of a friend he was or friend he is. And then, he's just, I'm telling him as he's coming in, they don't have any commentary. So you're being recruited for that. And then he just goes right out there and goes into it because he pretty much already knows everybody. He may not know all the angles that they're involved in because he's not seeing every single show that everybody's doing, but he knows who everybody is. He knows enough of their background and to where you just go out there and wing it. And he was able to get through it. He's a pro. And other than maybe Dave Prazak, there's not anybody that I've seen put that effort and time into it. And like I said, he should be getting booked every Friday, every Saturday, and most Sundays. He should be booked somewhere. And like AEW is missing out by not having him as one of the agents there to help out with stuff because he literally lives wrestling
Agent,
and
commentary, producer, whatever.
has since he was 3 years like 3 years old. he's running around hugging Jeff Jarrett, and I mean, he's been around the business his entire life, and he's learned from everybody that's anybody in the business. He's soaked up knowledge from them, and to not be taking advantage of that is just stupidity on major promotions part, to not use him to their advantage with the people that he can recommend to them, the ideas that he could come up with, and just the fact that he's done everything on a show. So there's
Right.
there's nothing that he does not know how to do and cannot help with, and that he thinks that he's above doing. So just to have him around to help with the chaos on a show, you need people like that there, and he needs to be booked everywhere.
And on that note, like I know he likes to put up like the four pictures where he's standing at ringside with the roam cam and he's setting up light tubes for the 200 light tube main event, and obviously commentary, and then the running sound and agenting shows and laying out cards, and so wrote in with such and such, and can he get a spot? Yeah, sure. I'll get his music ready. And it's like those show, and like for everything that I edited IWA, if I wasn't physically in the building, because most of them were remote, I was working a weird schedule at the time and I could only occasionally make Thursday shows. And almost like 95% of what I edited was Nick shooting it from the hard cam and finding somebody to run the roam cam. Then he went home that night, dumped them to Google Drive. I downloaded them, edited them, and sent them off to where they were going. So, and we did that setup for years, and we still do that setup with Larry D's promotion out of Kentucky. And when he pitched it to me of, hey, you want to do this? It's going to be just like an IWA setup. I'm like, yeah, sure, I can do that. You're doing the hard work. I just have to put my magical touch on it. But like so many of those shows would not go if it wasn't for him for
Right.
so many different reasons. And every show that I'm on, if he's there, things just run smoother. And if it's not within his scope, he's going to find out whose scope it's in and immediately get the problem fixed.
Right.
Bouncing backwards in time, I got a couple of fun, silly, whatever. I actually have one here, but I'm looking at my notes. I'm prepared. I definitely did research. So I think the first time that we met face to face would have been the King of the Death 2006. Because I did a show, I went up to a show that Zach Gowen was on with Jake York, former ring crew guy. I don't know if you remember him. He had a horrible stutter. Was one of my childhood best friends. He was ring crew from like late 05 until like 07. Real tall kid.
Did he have like dreadlock kind of, or
At one point, and you couldn't understand hardly a word he said because he had an insane stutter. People would call him Stuttering Jake, and he embraced that name.
I don't remember the stutter, but I think I remember the hair being like the villain on The Simpsons.
Yeah. So
The
I rode up to a show with him, and it was possibly Highland to see Zach Gowen, and you weren't on that show. And I was kind of pissed because I'm like, I want to see Jim Fannin. That's one of the people I want to see. I was kind of pissed. So the first show that we met would have been King of the Death 2006. And you were just
Okay.
there running merch or whatever. And I remember walking up and saying, hello, I'm a huge fan. And you looked at me dead in the eyes and say, oh, so you're the one.
At that point, you probably were. If you were a fan, you probably were the one. Because I think that was. I mean, if I wasn't at the Midlothian show, that had to have been That had to
It
have
was the year
been
Mitch
while
won.
I was. That had to have been when I was quote unquote serving my suspension for the barbed wire bat shot on Jimmy.
Well, you were there because Mitch. That was the year Mitch won.
Right, but I'm saying that Midlothian show. If I wasn't at Midlothian, with as close as that was is to Morris, that it had to have been. It was before the King of the Death matches.
Oh, the Zach Gowen show was like 2004, 2003. I know I was young then.
So that had to have been Highland,
Yeah,
maybe.
it was definitely Highland,
Okay, that
but
might have been the very first Highland show. I think that first
maybe.
Highland show I couldn't get off work, and so I wasn't at the very first Highland show. So maybe that's why I wasn't at that one.
But I immediately make a splash on Smart Mark Video. My first show that was being shot by Smart Mark Video. If you watch just before the lobster match, and this is a fun little Easter egg to watch, they're filming B-roll of the lobsters, and for whoever knows what reason, I'm standing right beside Gary as he's filming it, and you hear me go, poke him around a little bit, get him pissed off first. Because I wanted to see a fucking lobster bite someone. I wanted to see a pissed off lobster because a match with live lobsters, quote unquote live lobsters, wasn't enough for me. I wanted to see pissed off lobsters too because I have been a sicko for way too long. But that was my first of a long stretch of shows, and it's one of my favorite moments of all the times of working IWA shows. It's like, yeah, I first show that I was at, I got a weird little moment that Smart Mark didn't cut out of just my audio.
Nice. It's sometimes like I think I don't know if they edited out because I had something like that with like the 2003 King of the Death matches where I was just so mad during the Nick Gage Mitch Page match because Gage wasn't bleeding at all, and it was like the freaking semifinals of King of the Death matches or something, and he's not. I think he had a little bit of blood on his back, and that
One
was it.
little,
And I was just livid that whole match, like because that was my first time really seeing Nick Gage, I think, and I had heard so much about like, oh, he's just the king of CZW, and then he comes in and he's not selling, he's not bleeding for Mitch Page, and it was pissing me off to no end, and I'm like just storming around the ring, just screaming and Burns is dying laughing, doing the roam cam, going around the ring because I'm like, I dare this motherfucker.
oh, it's in.
Yeah, so you
It's in
can
there.
hear it on there. Yeah, because
Oh,
I
100%.
haven't I haven't really went back, and that's one of the things is I do not go back and rewatch most of the stuff afterwards. So that's why my memory is so bad on so many things on the podcast is because I saw it live and
Right.
haven't seen it in the sometimes 30 years since it happened, and I'm trying to remember it from that, and it doesn't always work out so well for me. But for the most part, I tell it like it is, and I try to tell the truth on here. And when I do get something wrong, I try to correct it, and we'll post online and be like, okay, well, this was actually found out that this is what it was, but you know, yeah, that was probably the one time that me just making remarks made it onto the show. But Burns was dying laughing that whole match, listening to me just be all kinds of pissed off,
So
and
in that
and
match,
Mitch wasn't too happy about it either.
Gage is barely bleeding, and it sparked a conversation point for me. And Nikki can edit this out if he needs to, and I'll edit it out if I need to, because we're pulling back the curtain, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is pulling back the curtain. So, what are your opinions? Because everybody seems like they have mixed opinions these days. What are your opinions on the blade in wrestling these days? Because in the time that you've been away, it was already dying out when you left. In the time that you went away, the blade is so rarely used on TV, on the indies especially. Like, I have ribbed people in locker rooms before because nobody knows how to make a fucking blade. So I'll make a sword blade and just hand it off to somebody and be like, hey, heard you were going to get color tonight. Just to fucking rib them because I think it's funny. And they look at it and don't even realize how much of a rib it is because it'll be sticking out like that.
Well,
but
to tell you the truth, if you handed me all of the materials, I wouldn't be able to make one. Never made one, didn't sit and watch it be done in the locker room. Just let those guys do it. The few times that I got color, it was always somebody else, like Ian giving it to me, Bull giving it to me. For one night, my dumb ass let Corporal do it and he gouged the hell out of me with it. And that was the result where there's a picture online where I had the white dress shirt on that night because I knew I was going to get color. And my white dress shirt is completely red. There's like hardly any white left on it at all by the end of the night. That was like Corporal really getting it on me. But yeah, I couldn't make one. So I'm not gonna sit there and give anybody shit for not being able to do that. But I will say that it has its place in the business. It's important in the business. It needs to be used in the business. To me, the dumbest goddamn thing that I have a million reasons why I will not watch WWE and why I will not give them my business and why I think they are the drizzling shits and I wish nothing but bad things upon Vince McMahon. But the fact that they do goddamn Hell in a Cell in War Games matches and there's no blood.
Without the blade.
What the fuck is the point?
What the fuck is War Games without the blade?
What the fuck is the point of that? That is just the dumbest damn thing on the face of God's green earth. If you're not going to bleed, why have the cage? You know?
Right.
And along those lines, like, I don't know which, I can't remember which pay-per-view it was, but I think it was in Kentucky. And it was Triple H against, Mick Foley, and they use a barbed wire board.
Yes.
And Triple H, and again, a million reasons why I hate that son of a bitch and can't stand him. But one of the biggest is, he pulls out the barbed wire board and it's an actual barbed wire board and he's beating Mick Foley to death with it. But then Mick has to go get a different board that has all the barbs cut off the barbed wire.
Yes.
So that Triple H doesn't have to actually take the barbed wire. Well, fuck you, because the number one rule in IWA Mid-South was you don't ask anybody to do something you're not willing to take yourself.
Yes.
And
barbed wire is not that bad.
And I don't know if it was Triple H didn't want the real barbed wire. I don't know. But the fact that he allowed it to happen, no. Either you use the fake barbed wire board on both, or you take the shots right back. And like, I wasn't there, so I don't know the reasoning behind it. But that was the day that I lost all respect for Triple H, and I had very little to begin with at that point. But
so, the flip side of that, and I know that you haven't watched anything in the last decade and a half. A lot of times you'll see like a light tube death match, you'll see a razor board death match. They'll have all this insane shit, and they'll have huge color Like their backs will just be fucking shredded. Their arms will be fucking disgusting all the way down it. And the only cuts on their faces are all incidental. And people are, I've heard I'm of the mindset that if you can see the damage that the light tubes are doing on their backs, you can see the damage that the gusset plates are doing on their arms. It only makes sense that the same amount of damage is done to their face. So if you take a gusset plate, you take a light tube, why is that produce so much more blood on your face than it does on your back? But that's also a weird subculture on top of a subculture, because not everybody's getting hit with fucking light tubes.
Right. And again, that's one, make it make sense. That's always been my deal, right or wrong, there was a reason behind me hitting Jimmy Jacobs with the barbed wire bat.
Right.
It wasn't just some random, oh, why did that? Real life storyline, every part of it. There was a reason that the fans could understand and wrap their mind around. And it, like I said, right or wrong, at least there was a reason for it. Some of the matches, they're just going out there and they've got no beef between the two of them. And I mean, it's one thing if it's a tournament. If it's a tournament, that's its own thing. You're trying to win the tournament, so you're going to use everything. But when it's just these two random dudes on a show, and there's no history there. Why is this a death match? If it's not for a title, if it's not for a tournament, why is it there? Would be my first part of it. And then, like with what you described, I'm fine with, like, if they're tearing up their back and they're tearing up their arms and they're bleeding buckets, I don't need them to be bleeding from the head too.
Right.
Don't be giving them headshots though.
Don't touch the head if you don't want to bleed from the head.
Don't touch the head if you don't want to, because if it's drawing blood everywhere else, it should be drawing blood from the head.
Right, exactly.
But there's a ton of, I can see, if you've got a real job and you're not paying your bills with professional wrestling, I can't go into work all scarred up.
No.
But if it's covered on my back, if it's covered on my arms, I'm fine. But I can't be front facing people if I've got an Ian Rotten forehead. Can't do it. Can't do it.
I got one, and it's kind of covered. I don't know how well you can see it. Like right there. You
can sort of see it, yeah. But
yeah, I
have no problems with them not bleeding from the head if that's what you say. I'm not watching it, so I don't know. But if that's what's happening, I'm fine with that. But like you said, don't take a light tube bundle and bust it over their head, with a headshot. If they're not gonna get any color off of it, because it just doesn't make sense, and I've railed against it several times on this podcast, and Manawa will always say the same thing to me with, you wore a bra. But, like the comedy drives me, the comedy in wrestling can drive me nuts because there's a time and a place for everything. But when you're doing it every damn match and it's not something that fits in to the story, and it's not something that, is just a haha, that was kind of funny, like me eating shit and tripping and falling and doing the Shockmaster, whether it's on accident or on purpose, that's funny, And I've railed against Orange Cassidy a million times on this podcast and to friends, and I'm tired of hearing well, you just don't understand the gimmick. I understand the gimmick just fine. I just hate it.
You just don't like it. It's not for you.
I just don't like it. It's not for me. And, as Manawa has had to tell me, I'm like 6 months away from being in the demographic that advertisers and companies do not give a shit about. I'm about into the old white man demographic that they don't care about. I right now I can still latch on to that. I'm in the 49 year old. I haven't hit 50 yet to get into that other age bracket. But so my opinion, they're not trying to win me over. They're trying to win the kids over. And and if that's what the kids like
it.
If that's what the kids like, fine. I'm going to be dead soon anyway. Let it go. Whatever. But when he was sleeping on a ladder that gets pulled out from under the ring, I can laugh at that. That's funny.
Yeah.
But I've said it a million times. If you're in a fight with somebody and you're trying to win a match against somebody, and ladies and gentlemen, you can sit there and go, oh, it's a work. It's not, it's fake. It doesn't matter. The premise still has to be that you care whether you win or lose. Because if you do not care if you win or lose, why would the fans care? Why should I, watching, give a fuck if you don't give a fuck?
I agree.
So that's why, even like coming into Wrestle Arts, every one of my tweets, everything is, I am coming to take this title. I collect champions. The title is what is important. That is what I'm here for. I care about winning, and I care about the title. That's what I want wrestling to be. Care about winning and losing, care about becoming a champion. Because otherwise, why in the fuck are we all here? Why are we watching? It just makes it for nothing. So if you're going to go out into a fight and you're going to put your hands in your pocket and you're just going to stand there like a doofus ass motherfucker in front of your opponent, and your opponent doesn't kill you, I don't respect you. I don't respect your opponent. I just turn the channel. And then they're always like, well, just hit fast forward and then come back. No. When you lose me, you lose me. I'm going to find something else to turn the channel to, and then I'm going to keep it on that channel, and I'm not going to come back. That's how I work as an old man. Evidently, the kids aren't like that, so fine, do what you want. And, like I say, 20 years from now, it's not going to matter to me because I'm not even going to remember what my name is if I'm still alive anyway. Who cares? And if that's what the future is going towards, then have at it. But right now, it drives me nuts. Absolutely.
So, in regards to fighting a motherfucker with his hands in his pocket, it's a really funny story that Zane Paisley cannot stop telling. Over Royal Rumble weekend last year, there was somebody in the crowd just being a fucking homophobic piece of shit at Nap. And Zane went over to handle it, and the guy started giving Zane a hard time. Zane married me and my wife. He is not somebody that I'm going to let somebody give a hard time to for any reason. So the main event ends, and I went over and I set down the very expensive camera, and I walked over to this man, and I put both hands in my pockets, and I said, buddy, we're walking out now. And he looked at me like, who the fuck are you? You just were running a camera. And I started shoulder blocking him all the way to the door, and he's walking out. Across the building, Sean Kemp comes running because he thinks I'm about to beat this guy's ass. Jeremy, you can't hit him. You can't hit him. I said, Sean, my fucking hands are in my pockets. I dare this man to hit me. I can't block it. Let him hit me. I get him almost to the door. Jordan comes running from the other side. Jeremy, you can't hit him. You can't hit him. I said, Jordan, my hands are in my pockets. I haven't put a hand on him. I get him to the door, walk him out the door, and I turn around and I realize Isaiah Broner was right behind me the entire time, too. So while I felt like the biggest badass up until the point that I turned around and I realized Isaiah Broner was standing right behind me, I walked the motherfucker out of the door, though, with both hands in my pockets of, I dare you to throw a punch, because if you do, it's going to be the last one you throw.
And the whole time you had a goddamn moving brick wall behind you that
I
I
had
would I
Broner
would
right behind.
I wouldn't have thrown a punch at you if Isaiah Broner was behind you, having your back the whole way either.
The thing is, Broner's not who you need to be afraid of. He should have been afraid of me because I'm fucking crazy, Jim.
Well,
And I would beat somebody's ass. Broner is afraid to catch and charge. I'd beat his ass and then leave.
but sight wise,
Sight-wise, Broner's a lot more.
he's the one that you're going to be scared shitless of, you know. But yeah, the guy probably figured out too that you were pretty crazy to be shoulder blocking about the building like that. But
when the cameraman walks up to you with both hands and his shoulder blocking you out of the building, you kind of are like, yeah, he's about to. And then three people come up running up. Don't hit him. Don't hit him. He realized he's about to get hit. But so we're circling back. The blade question actually was a segue. Now that we're 35 minutes later, to two stories.
Anybody that has seen this podcast knows the dangers that just throwing an open-ended question at me. Then you gotta wait 40,
question, right?
You gotta wait 40 minutes before you can get the next question in.
I'm not just a producer; I'm also a fan. So we segue because this story relates to somebody who was not a big fan of blading. I'm going to tell the Juicy Red Apple story. Juicy Red Apple story, it then ties into the other story that I said we're going to have to tell for the third time so that we can actually give the proper context of why that happened. So, 500th IWA show. I was traveling with the Naptown Dragons to the show, and Drake was supposed to be our guide because none of us had been to Joliet before. Drake knew where he was going. So Drake's supposed to be the guy. Drake fell asleep before we even left Indianapolis. So we are on the interstate, and we're just hoping that we're heading in the right direction. Turns out we drove like 50 miles past where we were supposed to get off because Drake was asleep. But we stopped at this gas station, and Drake's asleep, so we go in, and we're going to get drinks and stuff. And it was me, Chase the Weapons guy, who built the tailgate that got bumped on like 3 years in a row at King of the Death matches. Me, Die Hard, and Chase walk in. Me and Chase are getting our drinks, whatever. And we hear just a ruckus up front. And it's like, what the fuck is happening up there? We go to check out, and Dustin is standing with these two apples in his hands, palming these apples. No, sir. I brought these delicious red apples from home. How dare you accuse me of shoplifting these delicious red apples? I brought these delicious, juicy red apples from home. Dustin came from the ECW arena. He did not even go home. He was shoplifting apples. So the guy running the gas station is like, I saw you take them. How dare you accuse me of stealing these juicy red apples? I would never steal a delicious red apple from you. And me and Chase are like, what the fuck is happening? Chase leads Dustin out. Dustin takes the apples with him. I'm like, dude, how much does he owe you for the apples? Just put it on mine. I don't want an incident. It's like $1. Why are you stealing dollar apples, Dustin? But Dustin ties back to the other story. Because Dustin Lee he's the craziest person I know, and I know you, Jim. He was in the TLC match. And he had asked me, knowing that I know how to build stuff right, to build a thumbtack bat that wouldn't lose the thumbtacks. And I said, Dustin, what do you mean won't lose the thumbtacks? He says, because I'm in the TLC match and most of the guys don't want to bump on tacks, but I want to do a spot with a thumbtack bat. I said, I can make it happen, but it's going to be a motherfucker of a bat because the only bat that I have right now is this big old thick Fisher Price bat. I had saved it because I was planning on building like a barbed wire bat out of it because it was too heavy to make a thumbtack bat. He's like, that's fine. I'm going to climb up the ladder and do like a double stomp onto it. I just don't want it to lose thumbtacks. So I didn't do the typical wrap it in duct tape and then put the thumbtacks on it. I gorilla glued those thumbtacks on it, on this heavy, thick. The weight of it was like a wooden baseball bat. And Dustin's going to do his spots, and that way nobody other than Dustin and probably Mickey was probably going to be the one to take it because she was in that match too. That way nobody but them interacts with the thumbtacks. Or so I thought. Until I'm watching the show from the back row, and I hear Mean and Hard's music hit, and I see you come walking through the door with the thumbtack bat. And I go, oh, I turn to Chase and I go, oh no, Jim has my bat. How did he get that? And Chase goes, I don't know. Does he know that it's a bastard bat? No. What's he doing with it? Chase goes, I don't know. Brain damage and deranged are pretty tough, though. Then the other side of the story that you've told now 3 times, Billy wanted you to waffle it with it. He didn't know that it was built in the most bastard of a way possible.
I don't know if he did or not.
No, there's no way.
I don't even remember like how it came into my possession in the back.
It had to have just been laying there because Dustin probably set it down to call something or do diehard Dustin Lee things because that's what he does. And you walked up, grabbed it, and go, oh yeah, fucking around with it. And Billy probably looked at you and goes, give me the bat shot just like Jimmy Jacobs because he was being fucking stupid.
He might have been the one that took it.
Because
I did not have the bat. He came up to me, and I can't remember if he had the bat already or not, but I know I didn't have the bat. And he just comes up to me and he's like, man, I'm can't believe I'm getting to work with you tonight. Love that bat shot you gave to Jimmy Jacobs. And, I want to take 2 thumbtack bat shots tonight.
No, he did not.
And I'm like, you want 2? And he's like, yes, I want to take 2. I loved what you did to Jimmy Jacobs. I want to take 2 of them. And I look right at him. I'm like, I have to swing it the same way I swung at Jimmy Jacobs.
Right.
The bar has already been set. I'm not bringing it down. That I'm known for this is, and he's like, yes, I want 2 of them because I guess he wanted to show he was tougher than Jimmy Jacobs. I don't know, but yeah, when he took that first one, it was a fight to try, because he was like, no, I changed my mind. I do not want a second one. And since you were there, I cannot remember. And since it didn't make the video, was there a second bat shot? Because I don't remember.
No, just the skirmish on the floor.
Okay, so
but I have to ask you, because you were around that was at the very tail end of your run. So you had seen a million thumbtack bats with the double-sided tape, the tape around it. You had felt that they're usually from the Dollar Tree, really lightweight. Did at any time of you holding that bat, you realize, wait a second, this is actually like really heavy, and look down and realize that they're all glued on, they're not, because it looked very different. Like, I know how to build things the right way, and that was not the right way because it was for a specific purpose.
Truthfully, I'm pretty sure that was the first time I had ever held a thumbtack bat.
Really?
I've never swung a chair. I've never swung a light tube at anybody. I've been hit with light tubes, but I never swung a light tube at anybody. Never. Like the only weapon that I had used when I used the barbed wire bat on Jimmy, that was the first time I'd used the barbed wire bat.
And clearly
Normally,
nobody walked you through here's the safe way to do it and here's the not safe way based on history.
so I mean, I had never picked up like seen it used a trillion times, but it was never me that ever like picked it up and had it or swung it or anything else. So to me, there was like, okay, this is what it
This is
is.
a thumbtack bat.
This is and like I said, he had
He
to
was
have
the one that brought it.
he was the one that brought it to me. So I'm like, okay, this is what you want me to use, and you want two with this, so you're gonna get two with this. There's no difference to me. I just knew that I had to swing for the fences because I told him you're gonna if you want to take two of them like Jimmy Jacobs, you're gonna take two of them like Jimmy Jacobs.
Uh,
And
Other than a barbed wire baseball bat that I built for one of the King of the Death matches that I electrified for John Calvin, and then it got unelectrified and then just hung around for like 6 months in the arena and just kept getting used over and over. And I knew it was mine because I wrapped it in neon green duct tape. That is probably my favorite weapon that I built in all my time of just prop making. Oh, and the exploding bat. I made an exploding bat that was pretty fucking cool. Just because of this is built in the most sinister, hopefully like deliberately unsafe. Like I know the safe way of doing it, built in the most deliberately unsafe way, and it just about kills Billy Graham. And I told him the King of the Death matches afterwards. I'm like, hey, the bat that Jim Fannin about killed you with, I built that. And he goes, well, you're a bastard then. Like, it wasn't built for you.
yeah, well,
Like,
it was built for a guy that I mean, is he still over in Ukraine? Do we know? Is he still?
so I was trying to get in touch with him because Trippin' Balls asked me about the Ukraine thing before he posted about it. And I said, I haven't seen Dustin in about 6 years. He came into my shoot job because my shoot job at the time I was selling sign supplies and he was running a t-shirt company still. So it was relative. And I look over and I'm like, is that fucking diehard Dustin Lee? And I sat with him and I'm like, we'll just catch up. See if he's still the craziest person I know. He is. So Trippin' Balls sent it to me and he's like, do you know anything about this? I'm like, no, but it all tracks. Like Dustin's in the Ukraine wrestling. Yes, that's logical. I'm not going to ask any questions. That all perfectly tracks. So possibly, I don't think you can just fly back from the Ukraine. I don't think you can just go there on a tourist visa. I don't know anything about the current politics, but I don't feel like you can make it a weekend trip.
Well, and they've got a war going on all around them. Why do you need deathmatch wrestling? Just look
Why are
outside.
you doing? Why are you doing deathmatch wrestling in a literal war zone? Like,
Right. I mean, just look outside. You've got it right there. You don't need to have a wrestling show of it. And it just floored me that there was that going on in the Ukraine, and then a
but it
week
makes
or
perfect
and then
sense
a
that
week
Dustin is there.
and then a week or two ago, I ended up seeing where I guess there's like a deathmatch company in Poland now or something that's hugely
Yeah.
popular, and I was like, okay, I had no
Have,
idea.
have you seen the Soft Earth Wrestling yet?
Soft ground or whatever,
Soft ground
the
wrestling.
African the African
Yeah, where they're
one.
wrestling on just fucking like packed in mud and taking the most
I've
heinous bumps
seen
ever.
a little bit of it has crossed my timeline. I think back when wasn't there a guy that was like playing a Jesus character or something where he was like
Biting
carrying
the
a
heads off
cross,
of chickens.
he was like carrying a cross to the ring or something and just getting like tortured and shit. I've seen a little bit,
Trippin'
and
Balls is the one who brought that to us, and who fucking knows where he ever found it because he's a pervert in that way.
well, you keep saying that diehard Dustin Lee is like the craziest person you know. I mean, I've just had some interactions online, and then the 6 hour marathon recording session with tripping balls. But something tells
He,
me that if he
he's right there.
wanted, if something tells me that if he wanted, he might be able, to compete with, Die Hard Dustin in some of the categories for craziness.
Well, and Brant's right there too. Of the he was doomed from birth, like going to indie shows in the middle of fucking nowhere from as a literal baby, like Manawa. Like
Yeah.
I wasn't that doomed. I got taken to the Black Parade in the city, and I was 4 years old and got to see WrestleMania 8 live, and that was enough to. And then I was in Riley. That was enough to set everything off. And then when I was in kindergarten, I was in Riley Hospital for a very rare disease. It Hennig purpura. It was a derivative, very similar symptoms of AIDS. And I was a kindergartner, so I was in the hospital for like over a month. And the only thing I wanted to do was fucking watch wrestling. I'm sick and I'm bedridden and I want to watch fucking wrestling. Riley Hospital did not have the biggest wrestling library in their library. But what they did have, for God knows what reason, was a tape of Bruiser Brody
In a children's hospital?
in a children's hospital. And
Okay.
it did not leave my hospital room for the month that I was in the hospital. And I watched it over and over. It was like Best of Brody in Puerto Rico. It was
In Puerto Rico.
extremely violent wrestling that a children's hospital had no business ever having. And
How in
I
the hell
wore
did
that
that get
tape
into a
out.
children's hospital?
And why did nobody? Can you know that I was probably the first person that ever rented it and asked for it? It's like, I want this. It's not WWF. Ooh, it's better. So I was fucking doomed from the
Uh,
beginning. Like realizing, oh wait, I love Brody. That's the good stuff. I want more of that.
yeah.
And like, for better and worse, Nick Mondo has been a hero of mine and very instrumental. He's the one that kept me involved in wrestling, because I was to the point where I'm like, shit on TV sucks. I don't want to see any of that. And I see Nick Mondo and Trent Acid. I didn't even see the crazy roof bump like most people. But I see Nick Mondo and Trent Acid, and I'm like, okay, I want more of that. And like a month later, I met JC Bailey. And I'm like, wait a second, you're just like Nick Mondo. And he looked me in the eyes and goes, how dare you say something like that? I'm not just like Nick Mondo. I'm like, you got the same pants as him. You look like him. You have the tattoo over your belly. You're just like Nick Mondo. And from there, it's just like off to the races. But if it wasn't, and then Nick Mondo got to the brink and luckily stopped at the edge, and then went on as a career as a videographer and became a pretty famous videographer. He worked for AEW doing video stuff for a little while. So I'm like, okay, I can't be a deathmatch wrestler. I wanted to be a deathmatch wrestler. And I was watching tapes and I'm like, I'm not going to be Nick Mondo because I'm not built that way, but I could be Madman Pondo. I can do that. And thank God Mondo took the bump to end all bumps. And I'm looking at it, I'm like, well, I'm never going to top that. So now what? And I realized along the way of videography as my way in and my way to be involved. And there's a quote in one of his documentaries, and it's probably the quote that will be on my tombstone. Stubbornness is perseverance refined. So you really have to watch what you say around stubborn people. And I echo it, because it's like, you tell me I'm not going to do something, even if it's not feasible for me to do it, I'm going to do it just to motherfuck you. I'm going to do it just to spite you. And I feel like you and I are very similar in that way of, don't tell me no. Like, you tell me no, I'm going to figure out a way of doing it. I'm going to do it just to spite you, and then I'm going to laugh at you that I did it just to spite you.
Yeah, there's definitely I've tamed in that regard as I've grown older. My wife is like mellowed me out quite a bit in those
Sure, she has.
regards.
Jim, you were trying to kill somebody on Saturday. I'm not going to name names of who, but you wanted to. Is it just because
No,
your wife wasn't there?
but I didn't.
You didn't, but you wanted to.
See, there's a difference though, because 20 years ago I would
You
have
would have.
I would have.
And then I would have had to come downtown and been like, he didn't mean to. It wasn't premeditated.
Right.
Don't listen to his podcast. It wasn't premeditated.
Right. So, you know, she has definitely mellowed me out. And then like to this day I have no idea why IWA Mid South never got sued by people. I guess back then everybody wasn't just I the cleaners shrunk my pair of pants. I need $90 million for the emotional distress that this $10 pair of pants has caused me. Bullshit that we have in the
Right.
world today. Um, but if if somebody if somebody would have slipped and fallen outside of an armory, a building that we didn't own, and we were just renting and doing a show at, if somebody would have slipped and fell outside, say the Bloomington National Guard Armory,
Right.
and then tried to sue us while claiming that they were a fan, and they're going to sue us and put us out of business as a fan, I can tell you that the lawsuit would be wrongful death filed by that person's next of kin if it had happened in like 2004 2005 IWA, because I would have gladly went to prison for the rest of my life over something stupid like that. And so like whoever this person is doing it now, damn lucky that they picked that group and picked
Right.
that group now. Because like I said, 2004, in 2004 IWA, it might not even have been me that they would have had to have worried about.
Like, especially the people that were there that just didn't give a fuck
I
and had
mean,
nothing to
they
lose.
would have had to worry about Corporal. They would have had to. They're about like there'd have been about 5 people that would have ended that individual for.
Corporal, Necro, and Bull were the three on my watch out for.
I don't think Bull would have. Necro maybe. I know Corporal would have. I know I would have. Ian probably would have. Um, and there was probably a couple of others. There was probably a couple of fans,
Yeah.
real true fans that weren't fucking shitheads going, how can I make a quick buck?
So do you ever
Would have ended that person.
do you remember meeting Danny DeMonto? Because you were on shows with Danny
Somebody,
DeMonto.
a couple people have asked me, and like I went back and I looked at the shows and looked at the matches, and I have no memory, no
So
memory
you
of
look
it
at
whatsoever. And and I hate to be like that, but I mean, I was a bastard back then. I wouldn't talk to people. I would like I was so introverted and so wrapped up into, and a lot of it was I was living my gimmick 24/7, where I was the cantankerous, angry, you know one of my favorite wrestlers before I got was Taz, with the whole path of rage and just hating everybody and being the standoffish prick. And you know, I patterned a lot of my stuff after that, and being like that. Um, I mean, there was, like, you can ask Brent Blades. There was, like, people would say shit like, I could hand Jim Fannin a $100 bill and he'd be pissed off that it wasn't crisp, brand new. Like, he'd be mad that there was a wrinkle in it. And that was the truth back then. I mean, I'd be pissed about everything. And, so I would just stay in, and the people that I became friends with were the people that, like, broke through my exterior and pulled it, like, because I'm not a social butterfly. I'm not going to, if I'm out in public or I'm anywhere, I'll go to, me and Rich Wayne go on baseball trips. I cringe if somebody turns around and tries to give me a high five. And if somebody tries to talk to me, I'm not trying to make friends. I'm not out there trying, I just leave me alone. Leave me be.
Even at Black Label, it was me and Mickey pretty much until Manawa got there.
Yeah, I mean, and I don't. I mean, that's just the way that I don't have. I don't have the capability to do small talk. It's a skill I never got, and never picked up on it. I have no social graces whatsoever on stuff like that. So it's like I tried very hard this past, like, my friends expected me to go out to eat Friday night after the show. And, like, I kept circling around trying to, like, say bye to his, like trying to, like, oh, I need to break this pattern. I need to be better.
Take the hand of brother.
And so I was, like, trying to go around and, like, trying to get everybody. And same at Wrestle Arts, that I think I made 3 loops trying to get, like, okay, bye. It was great meet, trying to be better at the social graces and trying to be better at the small talk. But back then I had no desire to try to break through all that. And so if he didn't come up and talk my ear off, I may not have even said hello to him, and if he wasn't involved in a match that I was involved in, and we had to go over a finish or talk over a match. I mean, I've talked with Kickboxer more in the last, 6 months than a trillion times more than I talked to him in, like, the 8 years that we were on IWA shows together and stuff. And it's just, like I say, it's something I'm trying to get better at and trying, but I'm an old dog. It's hard to learn new tricks, and it's just a lot easier for me to just sit in my quiet shell. And so I don't have any memory of D'Amato at all. And I wish that there's so many of those guys. Like, Moxley was on IWA shows, like, my last year, maybe my last year and a half. I'm fairly certain I never spoke one word to him.
So the reason I asked about D'Amato specifically, I ruined his IWA debut by being just a fucking smart mark asshole prick. Because you've spoken about Z-Bar and how everybody didn't care for Z-Bar.
Yes.
D'Amato made his IWA debut because he was the one driving Devin Moore when Z-Bar wasn't allowed anymore.
It wasn't that Z-Bar wasn't allowed. It was that Z-Bar wouldn't come back. Wanted. But it was, he made that choice. Ian would have kept booking him forever.
But me and Chase got word of why Danny DeMonto was there. We didn't know who he was from Adam. And we decided to just be the biggest fucking assholes ever. When he walked out, we started chanting, "We want Z-Bar."
Ooh.
And the only person that popped, but it made us continue, was Ian at the ticket table. And Ian about pissed himself. And that was just me. That was fuel on me and Chase of, we need to go harder on this. Ian's laughing, so it's very funny. So
Yeah,
we
that
continued through his entire match of, "We want Z-Bar, go back home. We want Z-Bar, go back home." And there's like 12 people in the crowd. So we're just being loud and belligerent and obnoxious, as one does at an IWA show when they are a fan. And it rattled him so bad because it was the needle under the skin and looped back
well,
up.
that had to be the only time in the history of the world that anybody ever uttered that sentence. So I can see why it would just like completely rattle and throw somebody
Completely
off
ruined him.
because that probably should have killed him.
And that's the meanest thing anybody can ever say to anybody in hindsight of, "I would rather see Z-Bar than you, and I don't even know you."
And like I've said on the podcast, like I rest in peace. Didn't know him personally, but I mean he had no business being in the ring on an
No.
IWA show. And you know, and sort of like what you just described with the first time that I did the hey everybody go to the concession stand and I
Right.
could and I saw how much it irked him and how everybody was like laugh like that was just fuel to the like okay now I'm gonna
I'm
pour it
going to
on
go
20
harder.
I'm gonna go harder on it and you know I
Do you remember the Tracy Smothers versus Z-Bar match?
I do not.
It was it was in Plainfield. And Plainfield was kind of rowdy anyways. And Plainfield loved Tracy, and Tracy had to work to get us to boo him. And Ian realized that, and he's like, "Okay, well, fuck it. We'll do Tracy versus Z-Bar. If you guys want to cheer Tracy, go ahead and cheer Tracy." And Tracy did all of his shtick, and it was like 35 minutes before they touched, and it was
Oh my god.
Tracy was having a fucking blast. And I recall it, and it may be hindsight. It was one of the loudest crowds that I was ever in because we were just fucking. We realized that if we were fucking loud and just kept feeding into Tracy, Tracy's just going to keep going and just going to keep cutting a promo. And at
Yeah.
15, 20 minutes in, he's not stopping. That just amps us up because we're like, if we keep going, he's going to keep going. And nobody's cutting that microphone because it's fucking Tracy Smothers. You don't
Right.
cut
It's
Tracy.
Tracy. Right.
So
You let Tracy talk.
that's one of my favorite moments of, and it's baffling to say it. One of my favorite moments of being in the crowd at IWA was a fucking Z-Bar match because it was Tracy, and it was just Tracy at his Tracyest.
And that's the greatest compliment that you could give Tracy Smothers.
Like he went out there and he did all of his bullshit, and he told every joke, and he turned on us like 6 times, and we just kept cheering him louder. And it's like, oh fuck, I don't got anything else to do to make you mad. I guess I'm gonna be a babyface tonight. Hey Ian, I'm gonna be a goddamn babyface tonight because the fucking crowd won't let me turn on him.
Yep. Oh,
Let me see.
Tracy was one of a kind.
Oh, you called cut. You made your commentary return too, and broke a bucket list item. I guess we'll circle back. Circle back to 2026.
Yeah. So yeah, I got to do commentary one more time with Nick Manoa. I wasn't entirely happy with it. I think not because of
Well, you had
anything
so
he
much time
did.
to prep.
Huh?
You had so much time to prep because you knew Nick Manuel was going to be there and on
Right.
commentary.
Yeah, I
You
was
had
like, oh
months to
crap,
prepare.
and then I go out there because I thought the match that made the most sense for me to go out and try to watch would have been the Isaiah Broner versus Davey Boy Smith Jr. match, because those were the most likely candidates that I would try to recruit for the Fannin family, is to have an enforcer type role
Right.
for. So you know, so I'm out there and I'm doing the commentary, but like I say, it's been so long since I've watched anything. I don't know the names of any holds. So I'm like sitting there going, okay, well, Nick's going to have to call all the action. And then I don't want to step on anything that he's called. And if I'm out there trying to like scout these people, I shouldn't just be having conversation, and I should be focused on what's going on in the ring. And so I try to like play into that and just be like, oh, well, that was good strategy on his part. And maybe I could use, twist that a little bit. Maybe I could improve that a little bit for him. And, oh, that's a good skill that he's got. And, oh, that's impressive. But then I'm like sitting there going, well, shit, then it's too much about me. So then I quiet down even more. And, and I don't know, it was hard to try to, it would have been, like I say, I think it would have been easier at the Wrestle Art show doing something like that, where if it was knowing that there's follow up, knowing that there's more bookings and more to come.
Right.
Like that whole first half of the Wrestle Art show, I was ringside taking notes, sitting in a chair, taking notes, writing down until I finally got involved and revealed Connor Hopkins was my choice all along. And it would because I knew that we were what we were building towards. I had more direction, uh knowing what to do. So it was a little difficult going out there and trying to figure out exactly how to do, but I'm glad that I was able to do it. And again, the very first night back, and I check off box 1 and box 2
Right.
on the checklist. So as far as I'm concerned, the comeback's already a success, because item 1 and item 2 were head and shoulders above everything else that I put on my list. And so now everything from this point on is just gravy. And as you can see from my build, I love me some gravy. So give me as much gravy as possible, but it's all gravy from here, because I've already accomplished the 2 main goals that I had with the comeback. So if I shockmaster myself again and it all comes to an end, at least I got those 2 out of the way and can consider it a success. And so Manawa did a great job of carrying me through and with all my quietness. So I apologize to Isaiah Broner and to Harry Smith, or Davy Boy Smith Jr., whichever moniker he, I guess on that show he was Davy Boy Smith Jr. But I apologize to those 2 that my commentary wasn't quite up to snuff and what they deserve to have for their match. But I'm glad that I was able to knock that bucket list item off and do commentary with Nick Manawa again, and finally do it at a point in time where I cared, because unfortunately before, it was during the time that I was checked out and had my foot out the door in IWA and didn't want to be there. So had no memories really of doing the commentary with Nick. So I wanted to give myself something that I can remember. And I think that was accomplished.
So what did you think of Isaiah Broner? As I turn my head around, for up until last November, he was the ace of Naptown All Pro. He was the man that the company was built around. I think it was 18 months he was the Naptown champion. He was the first champion, and every challenger that came in front of him, he knocked them all down until he got to Josh Crane.
Okay.
So when I heard it's like, oh yeah, Jim's gonna do the Broner match, I'm like, okay, Broner is probably the favorite person that he will have on this show, just of because I know the style of wrestling that you like. I know, like, it would have been an absolute car wreck if you went out there and called the Dan the Dad match. No
Oh,
offense to Dan the Dad.
I knew nothing. I knew nothing about that, but just the promo picture. I knew to stay as far away
That
from that as humanly possible because
you would not have been a happy camper.
yeah,
But
I was like I have to stay as far away from that as possible because my comeback would have ended in one night.
and Danny Adams, Dan the Dad, he phenomenal talent, and I bless him for finding a gimmick where he doesn't have to absolutely kill himself, because I know he's older. I don't. He's been around for a long time. It's a gimmick that he can still do every weekend and not take as many bumps, and that's God bless him for that. But of all the matches on the card, if it wasn't going to be Taka and Kevin Koo, and there's reasons why it wasn't, the Broner and Davey Boy match was probably the most right up your alley match.
Yeah, I mean, I would very first time seeing Broner. I had seen a couple of. There was a short period of time where I was watching the New Japan shows when they were on the what was it, AXS TV or whatever that channel was that
Yeah,
what was that it was on. So I'd seen a very little bit of Bulldog Jr. I'd seen just a little bit of him, but I hadn't seen Isaiah Broner wrestle at all. But from the promo picture, my God, he's $1 million look. He's got the look, and so I was like, I need to see this match to see if he's got the in ring skills to match the look. And
and
when I went out there and I watched him, I mean, it was a short match. It wasn't built up to be like some big main event for New Japan or anything like
no,
that. But with what they did, he impressed me. And I think I even like tweeted it out after. I was like, that's I put him over in the way that I could in my tweet with like, he showed potential. He showed Fannin family material there as to like somebody that would be worthy of joining the family. He had, like I say, he's got that look. He wrestled smart. I like the way that, you know, Davy Boy Jr. was bigger, like even bigger than he was.
and that's a rarity.
Chop him down. He kept doing did the chop block a couple of times, took the legs out from under and like worked like he should have in a match like that. And what he did looked believable and it made sense. And very talented. I was very impressed with what I saw out of him. So I could see very easily how a promotion like Naptown could build around him and have him and it wouldn't kill a territory for him to be a champion for that long because it should take a special opponent to be able to beat him. And so that makes perfect sense to me. Did not know that tidbit of I wish that I had known that ahead of time and I could have like brought that up on commentary and even fed more into the whole, the Fannin family collects champions, and this man was a champion for a year and a half. So that would have been something good to make it make into it or and put into the commentary that would have made it better. But I wasn't prepared
So
for
I
that
fed you
point. So
I fed you a couple of matches I think that you'll like, and I got one that is like right up your alley. And there's a spot in the match, and I'm not going to give it away. It's on IWTV if anybody wants to watch it. Of Broner and Mad Dog Connolly at. We're in the back of a brewery. It looks like there's nobody there because everybody is outside of the camera view. But Broner does something to Connolly, and it is the most ungodly. Deadlifts him up, and I thought he killed him. And you could, there's a point where I'm just standing over Connolly because I'm the one physically grabbing his hand and making sure that he's still alive. I'm shooting with one hand and leaning over and just making sure that he's still breathing because the referee was doing something with Broner, and I looked down and I'm like, he just killed that man. You okay? You're still mostly okay. Which I've had people compliment me before that you don't often have the cross section of wrestling mind and video mind that I have, where if I see something that I think went wrong, I'm going to be the first one there giving you the Iggy of, hey, you good? Do I need to grab somebody? If I need to grab somebody, I know the people that I need to grab to come grab you. Like if there's a doctor on hand, I know where the doctor is, and I know where I can physically go grab the doctor. I know a path out if I need to get a path out for somebody. And I lost my train of thought there. I lost my thread. Wouldn't be a fan of podcast if somebody didn't do that. I had a point there, and I don't remember what it was.
Well, you were in the middle of talking about how you're got the wrestling smarts and the video smarts, and you checking on the wrestlers and make sure.
Right. So when I would go down for IWA, and I was around for 2017 until the very end, like deeply involved, and then involved building gimmicks. Everybody would always comment that I built the best barbed wire baseball bats around, and I'm like, yeah, because Ian taught me how to build it, and Terry Funk taught him how to build it. And you can't go further back than that with a barbed wire baseball bat.
Right.
So yeah, my bats are gonna look better than your bats. I'm third generation off of the person who fucking invented the thing. But whenever I would go down, even just building gimmicks, doing video work or whatever, when I wasn't doing something, I would just try to pin myself next to Ian and just listen to him lay things out, listen to him lay out the card, the psychology of why things are being done the way that they're being done. And to all of his faults, he's a fucking hell of a wrestling mind. And you can soak shit up like a sponge. And then you can find the things of, well, Ian would have done it that way, but that really doesn't work. We're not going to do that, but we can do this, and this is going to work, and I can adapt this. And I like to pat myself on the back because it was me, and fuck anybody that says it wasn't me because they're fucking liars. I booked a town for 2.5 years. We booked it out of the pandemic, so we had regulated crowds at the very, very beginning until everything opened up, and it steadily grew, steadily grew. The second to last show that I booked, we had 900 people in a very small Indiana town. The follow-up show to that, there was 700 people in the crowd in a very small Indiana town in West Terre Haute, Indiana. The next show after that, I got angry and I told them I wasn't fucking booking anymore because they were pissing me off and they were doing shit that didn't make any sense. The next show after that, I quit. They ran one more show and then they were out of business for 3.5 years. So I feel like I got a little bit of a wrestling mind on my shoulders, and I can build up a crowd, build up a town, and I can build up the stories, and I understand heat, and there's no such thing as too much heat. If people are jumping the guardrail and trying to stab somebody, good. Beat the fan's ass, but good. No such thing as too much heat. Topical, but
yeah. Some folks in Berwyn might
They might
disagree.
disagree, but
They might
I wasn't
disagree.
at the stabbing show, so it's
Yeah, I
okay.
wasn't. I wasn't there.
It's not my problem. I'm not the one that had to tackle the stabber.
And
But
the fact that they let him walk out the door, just
no, walk out in a fucking ambulance.
and it. I don't know. Some of they were laying bombs on the guy, and the guy just kept right on walking.
Yeah, methamphetamine's a hell of a drug.
Yeah. Whew. Tell me about it.
But like when people try to lay stuff out, and I'm like, that doesn't make any fucking sense. Do it this way. Or I have just little tricks, and it'll be like, instead of doing it that way, why don't you do it this? Why don't you? Oh, I see that you're going to use that gimmick. Don't break it on the first one. Give him the stab, and then do the thing. Why do that? Because that way he has a reason to naturally be doubled over. You jabbed him in the gut with it before you broke the thing. Like, and that's the sort of things that I have to tell people, and they don't think about, and just the psychology of, like, I realize that there's not a lot of people that understand the psychology of deathmatch wrestling because it's a fucking weird thing of trying to explain why you do the things that you do. Why, like down at GCW in Kentucky, I'm standing backstage and Reed Bentley walks up and hands me a roll of barbed wire and says, "Hey, will you build the barbed wire boards?" I said, "Yeah, let me make sure I'm not doing anything else." And Ash turns around and says, "No, you're good. Go ahead." Okay, where's all the shit to build it? I get this shit, and the two barbed wire boards that were in the match, I built because Reed didn't trust anybody else around there to build them right and build them safely and build them in a way that he could still go through them. Like, but he looked at me and it's like, "Hey, you know how to do this. Will you do this for me?" But it's a lost art, and probably for a good reason, of people who know how to do it and do it correctly.
Right.
And then you try to explain to a normal person in a normal life of, yeah, I know how to correctly build a barbed wire baseball bat. I know how to correctly build a barbed wire board. I could light tube up a ring for 200 light tubes where nobody gets hurt. How the fuck did nobody get hurt in 200 light tubes? Because I did it fucking right. And there's a right way and a wrong way. A
Definitely is
couple
when it
years,
comes to glass.
a couple years ago, or I guess it was last summer now. It feels like a couple years ago. It's time. Naptown did Deathmatch After Dark, and it was light tubes, a razor board, all sorts of nonsense. I built the razor board, and when it came time to set up the main event, I went back to the back and I'm fetching the light tubes, and I set up one side of the light tubes, and I looked over and they weren't doing it right on the other side, and I screamed across the ring, "Quit fucking touching the light tubes! I'll be over there in a second." And I went over there and I set up the other side of the light tubes. And it is the funny. I want to put that up as just B-roll sometime on my YouTube. Of, yeah, I'm gonna, if it's not being done right, I'm just gonna hop in there and do it because I don't want my friends getting maimed, and I know the correct way. And after the fact, John Wayne Murdoch was in the match, and he goes, "Well, thank you for setting that up so well. That everything was the tubes were put in there perfect." Well, I've been doing this since I was fucking 16. You you acquire little skills.
Little, big,
Yeah,
eye of the beholder. You know?
yeah. Like I was a literal child when I was learning how to build deathmatch weapons. I've lived a strange life.
That we have. That we
Like,
have.
and I tell people in my day to day life, I'm like, I could write an autobiography, but nobody that wasn't there would ever believe any of it. Like, I could tell you the stories. You're not gonna believe it. I watched Schlack get power bombed onto a filing cabinet, and the brace of the filing cabinet came up and impaled through his leg, and he nearly bled out in an IWA locker room. It, Ian said it was the most blood that he's ever seen, other than the Mitch Page grandfather clock incident.
Wow.
It was comparable to that. There was a pool where it looked like he got murdered. When I say a pool, I'm talking about an 8-foot pool of blood.
Damn.
Manuel leaned over the wall and took this picture of it, and it was so gruesome and gnarly. I put it as the art on the DVD and on the Blu-ray. And Mike Burns asked me how I did that art because it looked fake because it was so much blood. I'm like, that's not fake. That's Schlack's blood after the leg incident. He goes,
Ugh.
holy shit. But seeing things like that and living through things like that, nobody believes that shit. Like, what do you mean he got slammed on a filing cabinet? He got slammed on a filing cabinet and it impaled his leg. What do you mean he got hit in the head with a grandfather clock? He got hit in the
Yep.
head with a grandfather clock.
Yep.
And when you try, like, I used to work for the Indiana Secretary of State's office. The weekend after King of the Death matches, I was sitting at my desk and I'm reaching over. I'm like, fuck. And I pull out a piece of light tube glass on my arm because it's just fucking everywhere. It's underneath my skin. Pull it out, and I got like a trail of blood rolling down my arm. So I get up, I'm going to the bathroom. I'm just trying not to bleed all over the place because I got normal fucking people at the Secretary of State's office looking at me. As I am walking into the bathroom, I pass by our head of HR. So I walk into the bathroom, I get myself cleaned up, and she's standing there waiting on me when I come out. She goes, "Why are you bleeding?" "Oh, I pulled a piece of glass out of my arm." "What?" "It didn't happen here. Don't worry about it." "What do you mean you pulled glass out of your arm?" "Well, I do this wrestling stuff on the weekend." "What?" "Yeah, they break light tubes." "Why is it in your arm?" "Because I was filming it." "What?" In the Secretary of State's office, and I get pulled into a meeting of, is this an issue? Are you safe? "Yeah, I'm safe. I'm fine." Miedo Extremo just went a little crazy with the light tubes. It's fine. But
Yep.
those are the things that when you're around normal people, they just th- and no amount of explaining it, no amount of showing a clip, no amount
Yep.
of showing a picture can make a normal person comprehend it.
Nope. I
I,
go I go through that I go through that at work all the time. They'll be like
I
they just over and over, why?
why
Why?
why do you do that?
Why?
Why? I did a loop for GCW, and it will remain probably the hardest loop that I did. I went from right near where Black Label was, so roughly, I was like 7 minutes from home. So I
Okay.
went from home to right on the border of Missouri for GCW, back to home, to Columbus, Ohio, back to home in a weekend. Did not get rich. GCW pays me pretty well, but not for 12 hours round trip. Had nobody in the car with me. St. Louis is on a different time zone than I am. It's on the same time zone as you are. So
Yep.
that was 4 o'clock in the morning getting home, and then I'm back to Columbus the next day, and then it's 4 o'clock in the morning getting home. And then I went into work that Monday morning, and I'm walking in and I'm doing this number, and they're like, "Are you okay?" "Yeah, it was just a long weekend." "Well, what did you do? Were you out partying?" "No, I went to St. Louis and Columbus." Those are in different directions. I'm well aware.
Yep. Well, I think I've told the story on here before where I think it was for the Candido Memorial Show that was on like Long Island. So I was in Chicago, drove to Salem, Indiana for the IWA show. Drove from Salem, Indiana to, I think we picked up Axel in like Pittsburgh. And then we went from Pittsburgh to Long Island, Long Island back to Pittsburgh, Pittsburgh to Louisville to drop off Ian, and then Louisville back to Morris. Chicago.
which is a haul in itself.
And like I had changed the oil right before I left. And by the time I got back, you know, 4 or 5 days, 4 or 5 days later, I had already gone over the 3,000 miles and was right back to the dealership. And they're like, what the hell did you do? I'm like, way too much damn driving. That's what I did. And
I bought a 2018 Ford Focus off the lot. Had 3 miles on it when I test drove it. I put more miles on it test driving it than it had on it when I bought it. I blew up the engine in it 3 times, primarily because of wrestling. In 2021 and 2022, when I was probably at my busiest, especially once things opened back up everywhere because of the pandemic, and I'm like, okay, I got to make up for missed time. I'm going to take every booking if it's in the border of fucking West Virginia, and who knows how many fans are going to be there. I went to this mountain town, and it was for Toolman, and I drove through these mountains for like 45 minutes of just nothing on both sides of the road. I'm like an hour and a half off the interstate, 45 minutes from nowhere. I walk in the door, and Jimmy Hart is the first person I see. He goes, "Hey, baby, good to meet you." Hey, Jimmy. He goes, "How do you think we're going to draw, babe?" I said, "I have no idea. We're 45 minutes off the interstate." Drew really well. Toolman runs a hell of a show. But putting all of those miles on your car and driving, and especially doing it, because a lot of times, as many wrestlers as there are around here, I never find anybody to ride with because everybody seems like they're going in a different direction.
right.
Most of the time I'm doing it solo. So I'm listening to podcasts like this where people ramble on for 2.5 hours about absolutely nothing. I'm listening to shows like Between the Sheets, Friends of IWTV. I'm listening to other really long form podcasts just to keep myself sane. Because like in back then you guys had whatever local radio it was when you were making a lot of your towns.
Yep.
You were lucky if you had a CD player in the car.
Right.
You'd be blessed with Bluetooth in a car these days where you could listen to a 7-hour podcast about the North Korean family dynasty. I did that one time on a loop. And by the time I got to the show, I was so shell shocked because I had listened to like 4.5 hours of North Korean politics and then walked into the door and I've been sitting in this car alone for 4.5 hours listening to North Korean politics and the history of North Korea. And then I just info dumped all of this on the first person that came up to me, and they're like, "What the fuck is wrong with you? Why?"
Yeah.
Because that's what I was listening to. It's very fascinating. It's a fascinating story. What are you talking about? Because you gotta be a little bit broken to survive in wrestling.
Yeah.
You gotta not be wired quite right. Ron Nemi said it, that everybody in wrestling they got something just a little bit wired differently. And if you don't, you're probably not gonna make it. You're probably gonna fade away, disappear. But if you're wired just a little bit differently, you're probably gonna be around forever. If you're just a little bit broken, you're probably gonna be around forever. I've definitely got that little bit broken. And hopefully you're less broken now. This is where we get the big feelings. Hopefully you're less broken now, and hopefully you can enjoy yourself now across the return, and you can have a whole lot more fun like you should have been having all along. Because you definitely deserve it. You deserve to have fun. You deserve to go out and fall on your ass and have all your friends laugh at you, and then afterwards come back and go, "That was actually kind of funny. I fell on my fucking ass. I'm coming back and trying to make a big splash, and I fall on my ass." But you deserve to have those fun moments
Yeah.
and not have the shitty, hard feelings. I know Trippin' Balls told you all of this as well, but you deserve it. And the people that are surrounding themselves with you, We're doing it because we fucking want you to succeed and we fucking want you around, Jim. And it's not just, oh, well, remember Jim Fannin? No, we do remember Jim Fannin. We fucking like you a whole lot. And you are, like, you've right there behind you. You got Mr. Fuji, Jimmy Hart, Bobby Heenan. Is that Mean Gene?
Mean Gene. Yeah.
Well, we'll take Mean Gene off. You should be up there in place of Mean Gene because you belong on that shelf with Jimmy Hart, Bobby Heenan, and Mr. Fuji as one of the greatest wrestling managers. Because there aren't many of you around. Like, there aren't many just, I want to be a wrestling manager. It's, I'm going to be a manager and I'm going to be a promoter and I'm going to do this. And especially there aren't many that do it fucking well. Like, I told you ahead of time, I'm like, hey, when there's somebody that I like, that I think I can play with, I do this thing where I shoot directly over your shoulder. I didn't give you any more direction on it, and I got exactly what I wanted out of it because you fucking know what you're doing. Even though you haven't done it in 16 and a half years, I walked up to you, got behind your shoulder, and you immediately started yelling at Mickey to get on him right now, do this, do that, because you realize, oh, wait, here's the thing that he said he wanted. I'm over your shoulder shooting directly into the ring, grabbing the action, but also framing you. You know how many times I've tried to do that with people, and there's only one person that's ever actually done it correctly? But I barely walked you, because we had like 15 seconds that I could walk you through that of, hey, I'm just going to walk up behind you, shoot over your shoulder, start talking because you're mic'd. Okay, cool, got you. And that was it. But it's because you're really fucking good at what you do, and you deserve to do as much as you want to do. And I know that that's a loaded statement because you don't want to do everything. You don't want to be gone every weekend. And I know that. But you deserve to have everything that you want to check off of your list. And anything that I can do to facilitate that, anything that I can do to try to make my connections, I'm there for it. The IWTV connection, you deserve that exposure. You deserve to have a wide audience seeing what you do. And I facilitated that. I did a lot of the legwork, whatever. But it's because you put out a really good product with your podcast. Like, before you weren't a podcaster. You have no background in radio, but you can grab people that may not do a whole lot of podcasts. Like, how many fucking podcasts has Uncle Honky done before yours? Ever.
Right.
But you can lead Uncle Honky to an interesting podcast. How many podcasts had fucking half of your guests done before this? But
no clue.
To a weirdo like me that likes the really old IWA shit and likes to hear these fucking crazy stories and hear, because there are weirdos like me out there still. I don't miss an episode of your podcast. There's some that I might save and be like, this one's going to be a fun one to listen to in one shot. And there's ones that I'm like, I don't know that I ever interacted with that person. I don't know about their stories. I think I've listened to them all, and the ones that I haven't listened to, I'm about to go edit back. So I'm going to be sitting through them regardless. But you are extremely talented, Jim. And I don't know how else to put this in a way. You are appreciated for what you do. Like, the people that are vouching for you and trying to get you more out there, where I'm doing what I can, Nick is doing what he can, Dave Prazak is hyping you up and trying to get you back out there. We're doing it because you're really fucking good. And we know if we put you in a spot, like, I wouldn't have turned to you 5 seconds before the doors are opening and said, hey, Jim, you want to do commentary? With zero prep, and you haven't been on a wrestling show in 16 years, if I didn't think that you were going to nail it. Was it in the back of my mind of, please don't let him do the Dan the Dad match. Let somebody else call that one. That was in the back of my brain, but at the same time, I'm like, Zane is right here. Fannin is right here. if nothing else, we've got it taken care of because we have capable hands that I can give the steering wheel to, and you'll call it like you see it, and it's going to be your perspective, and your perspective is subjective, but everybody's is.
Right. Well, thank you very much for all those kind words. The check is in the mail.
Yes, sir.
And yeah, I mean, even when I was a kid, it was the Heenan, the Jimmy Harts, the Fuji's, the Classy Freddie Blassies, the Slicks. I wasn't the most athletic kid in the world, so I knew that I never dreamed that I would be able to get into professional wrestling. But when the thought would like dream upon dreams, that was the role that I always had in mind, is to something that I could do. And the fact that when I was growing up and watching in the 80s, like every bad guy had a manager.
Right.
I mean,
And now
fuck,
nobody
Rick
does.
Ric Flair, Tully Blanchard, some of the best talkers in the world. They still had J.J. Dillon. They still had Baby Doll. They still had, whoever else that they would have. They all had managers. And like WWF would have 10 managers. NWA would have 6 or 7. Like everybody had a manager. And then right before I got into the business, it switched to you had to be blonde with big boobs to be a valet, and all the
Right.
managers were gone except for maybe one, maybe two, if they were tight enough in the office. And then
And then that went away.
and then that went away. And it was, why are we paying this extra guy to do this stuff that we should be training these other people to just be able to do it all for themselves, kind of
Right.
thing. And so there was like there was no opportunities to advance, when I broke in. And it just makes me mad that if I was 10 years older, I would have at least caught a little bit of it. And maybe, who knows, possibly. But if I was 10 years older, I wouldn't have been in the position of, being young and gullible and naive and meeting Ian Rotten and being given the chance. So
Right.
I probably never would have been able to have broke into the business back then when everybody had a manager to have done it. So I can't dwell on the what ifs and what might have beens, and it'll just drive you nuts. You deal with the hand that you were given. Shouldn't be making gambling analogies on an IWA podcast, but
It fits.
it fits for this situation. But yeah, and I had a blast. I had so much fun. Connor's a great guy. Just he's so talented. The sky's the limit with him, and hopefully I can help him along the way and be along for at least part of the ride for him. Um, at times it's depressing when the guy works in 7 or 8 companies and he's asked all of them to use me, and one said yes. But Manawa keeps telling me you got to get new tape. Get once people see what you can do, then they'll be more willing to use you. So we'll see if that happens now that there's some tape out there. Hopefully they focus more on the Wrestle Arts tape where things went 100% correctly and in a good light, as opposed to Shockmaster Junior on the Black Label Pro show. But
As we throw the chain 40 feet across the ring.
and I had no idea until I watched it on the the IWTV release. I had no I like Nate yelled at me afterwards that I threw it too high, but I had no idea that it flew out the ring. I was like, I
I
launched
watched
it.
it as you threw it, and I'm like, what the fuck is he doing? As it just
Well,
whoosh.
I thought if I just hooked it over my head that it would, because I was like, I need it to be high enough that
You
he
go
can
over
like
Mickey.
like he can grab it, but Mickey's too short, you know, and so I wanted to make sure that I had it high enough, but put too much put too much power. I didn't recognize my own strength, I guess, on that one. I couldn't
That
believe it when I
it,
watched it. So then
Manoa could have retrieved that chain from his house in Louisville. How hard you threw it?
just about it about what it almost went to my friends that were sitting right by the hard cam. It almost went out to them. Maybe I was maybe in the back of my maybe in the back of my mind I was like trying to throw it to them instead of to Nate. I don't know, but
Would have been a funny visual, at least, of your buddy catching it and then throwing it back.
yeah, throwing it back.
Here, you fucked up the spot, Jam.
And then the fact that Nate Webb then gives it away. He comes back through the curtain. Oh, sorry, I gave your chain to a kid. And I'm like, really? A kid? You gave a weapon to a kid. What does a kid need with my chain? And he's like, do you need it back? And I'm like, I got two more in the I bought three because my whole thing was I was gonna I bought three different sizes. And so like my whole plan was like, oh, we'll do the spot where like I give her the small chain and it's not big enough. It doesn't deliver the knockout blow. And it's like, oh, I'm out of practice. I need a bit, so here's almost like the 8-man tag where we're just pulling weapons out of everywhere. And I'm like, okay, well, now out of this pocket comes the middle size chain. And oh, that's not big enough either. And oh, now we got the big one. And instead we just used the one, and I picked the biggest, most expensive chain that I had bought. Use it,
That's right.
and then he gives it out to it. But at least it ended up going to somebody you know, whose dad I know. So I was like, okay, well now I'm not. But like the next day, and I didn't know that it had went to Tom's kid. Didn't know
Yeah.
that. Didn't know that. Just at this point, all I knew was a kid got the chain. And then the next morning,
I don't think Nate knew that.
yeah, Nate didn't know. He had no clue who he just said I gave it to a kid.
Nate Webb controlled chaos.
Right. So
What's
then
going to happen is going to happen.
so then the next day I'm on Twitter and I'm scrolling through, and Tom has posted a picture of his kid with Eddie Kingston, and Eddie Kingston has this big thick chain wrapped around his fist, and he's like holding it up, and I just replied and I went, Tom, that looks like my chain. Is that my chain? Is your kid the kid that got my chain? And he just replied and went, yeah, that one's yours.
Naturally.
Naturally. But yeah,
Well,
hopefully everything works out and I get onto some more shows. Maybe some more folks will give us a chance. If you don't want to give me a chance, at least give Connor a chance.
well, now you got two more chains that you got to use.
Yeah, now I got two more chains to. Well, I used another chain at Wrestle Arts, except instead of throwing it, he rolled to me and I wrapped it, or gave it and wrapped it around him for him to go use, so I didn't have to throw it. See, I learned.
And then Nolly ran up and grabbed it off your hand and ran away.
No, maybe in the next one, but yes. So even though it wasn't the same company, I still use, like when we were trying to figure out what to do, I was like, well, this is what happened last night. So I learned from that. And tonight I get it right and do it this way here. So people can follow along and see that, knocking the rust off and learning from my mistakes quickly and righting the ship. So next show, hopefully we win the title. We'll see.
it is a hell of a mountain to climb with David Ali, because we talked about Broner and his long reign. David Ali, the champion of Wrestle Arts, just ended Josh Crane's very long reign with the Wrestle Arts title, and broke up. Josh had, I think it was either 7 or 8 Indiana and Indiana adjacent championships, and that's the only one out of all of them that he's lost so far. Which
Well,
was a shame, because when he walked out for the Taka match, he had all of the titles with him, so would have been cool to still have all of the titles, but
and that was until Saturday night. That was 3 titles, like 3 different belts for Wrestle Art. Like it's, I mean, they still call it the Triple Crown, but I guess they debuted a singular title for the Triple Crown now, and so it's 1 belt to carry around instead of 3.
Yeah, now that Josh doesn't have 7 other titles, it made sense to merge it into one.
Yeah.
Well, Jim, we were nervous about not having anything to talk about, and we went for 2 hours and 40 minutes already.
Right. Yeah. We're a whole lot, a Seinfeld episode here, a whole lot about nothing and a little bit of something.
I had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I had 10 questions. I had 10 notes.
That was 10 more than I had.
And we missed 2 of them.
Okay.
So thankfully we missed the 2 of them, so we're not here all night.
Yeah. Yeah, we should definitely wrap it up now. So this is going to wrap up another edition of Fannin's Flashbacks. Do you want to tell people how they can reach you and book you on social media to use your fine skills? I know you've cut back on your bookings, but here's your chance to tell people on how to follow you and give you money.
Yeah, I don't, unless it's something I really want to do and something really special. I'm not taking a whole lot of wrestling shows anymore. If I have a big stretch where I don't have anything, I might take, hey, I like working for you. I'll come out there and do it, whatever. Or, hey, Josh Crane's already booked. I can hop in the car with him. But honestly, I'm not doing a whole lot of wrestling anymore. If somebody has something that they think will be right up my alley, or they really, really need me and want to offer me a whole fucking lot of money and pay my bills, I'm on Twitter at Prophet of Ash. I've got a public-facing Gmail of bookprofitofash at Gmail. Instagram is Prophet of Ash Video, and you can actually DM me there because it's not broken and ran by a Nazi, so I didn't have to lock down my DMs there. My eBay store is a great place to find rare and weird and off-the-wall video games. Like, I'm sitting right near my office, so I can just grab random shit. How often do you see New Japan Token Resin with the strategy guide? Nobody just has that hanging out. I primarily deal in Japanese imports on eBay, and I've got roughly 1,000 video games that I'm sitting here looking at right now. It's turned into a real business. Like, it started out as I think I can make a little bit of side money because I'm not making nearly enough with wrestling anymore. Into okay, this is actually a business. I have to file taxes on this. I'm going to keep very good books, and the federal government wants to know what I'm doing and where all this money is coming from. I sell on Whatnot, and I have promo codes on Whatnot. I know Whatnot gets a bad vibe because of trading card shit, but I sell video games on there, and I'm not shady. I'm live on Whatnot almost every Saturday morning, and I am known for giving phenomenal deals on American video games because my margins are great, and I can give people phenomenal deals. But I have promo codes for Whatnot where you can get $15 off your first purchase. I put them up all the time, and nobody ever uses them, so I quit putting them up. But I'll put one up for this show link where you get $15 off your first purchase. You can come to my show, get a $15 video game for free. It costs me nothing. It costs you nothing. It comes out of Whatnot's pocket.
Okay.
My wife just texted me, you have gone way over.
Yeah, my wife went to bed. She got tired of listening to. She can only hear one side of my side of the conversation. She's probably like, I've heard this shit so many damn times now over the years. Don't want to hear it
I'm
anymore.
tired of hearing your bullshit. I don't care about this anymore.
Yeah. Yep.
I know how fucked up Ian Rotten was. My wife hates Ian Rotten to this day. Hates his guts, hates hearing his name, hates everything about his business. And I should have listened to her long ago, long before I did, because she's way smarter than I am. And I'm saying this because she can hear me. So I got to put her over because she can hear me.
Yeah.
She's texting me eye rolling emojis. So gotta put over how smart and beautiful and
Talented. Yeah.
talented and amazing my wife is for putting up with all my wrestling bullshit and putting up with me being gone every fucking weekend.
Yeah,
Always gotta
this
put
is
her.
sort of new for my wife. She came around towards the end. Been with her since 2006, so she had a couple of years of IWA and knows a little bit about that. And but so far she's been supportive of the comeback, so I'm appreciative of that. And you know, willing to do as many weekends as long as I'm not in this to lose money anymore. So if I can ride with somebody and hopefully Connor, because he lives right by my in-laws where it's easy to pick up along the way and jump in a car with him, you know, book us and I'll come and do your stuff and not going to charge you an arm and leg because I know times are managers shouldn't be getting a whole lot anymore because there's just not the budget for it. So,
Right.
uh,
And indie wrestling margins are thin. That's why
yep,
I have the video game business.
right. So, I got my shoot job that pays the bills. I'm just looking for have some fun, get my name back out there, make a little bit of money, which is why it's a whole lot less stressful now without having my money in the game on each
Yeah,
show.
exactly.
So I can sit back and have fun. But remember to check out my YouTube channel at youtube.com/sportsfannin. Get your IWA clips and matches and these podcasts. But you're going to really want to start watching these podcasts on IWTV. They're going to get released this week. The first, you've gotten how many turned in so far?
5 so far. Chuck Smooth, Mitch Page, and
The AMA three-parter is in
well, no,
one.
those are the Chuck Smooth and Mitch Page are the next ones on the docket.
Oh, okay.
The two Mark Wolf episodes, AMA as one, and then episode 1 and 2. So Kickboxer and who was episode 1?
Ben Rich.
Ben Rich. So Kickboxer, Ben Rich, the AMA, and the two Mark Wolf episodes are, if they're not already online, they're going to be, well, they will be by the time that this drops for sure.
Yeah, definitely by the time this drops, they'll be up. We're gonna try to get caught up as fast as Prophet of Ash can put them together,
Yeah, I'm a
along with all
sleepy
of
boy
his
right
other
now
stuff.
after this
So
weekend.
yeah, we're gonna release them, but you're putting in clips of matches, angles that are talked about on the show, so it's different than what if you've already watched it on YouTube, watch it on IWTV and actually see what we're talking about. Actually relive those matches, relive those angles, relive all that stuff. Watch it, put it on, let it run in the background.
The
Just
Mark Wolf episode has a nearly hour long tag match with Punk, Hero, and BJ Whitmer, and I don't remember what the teams were among those four, but it's a nearly hour long tag match that I know for a fact nobody has watched before because it was on a sparsely attended show with no actual name in the Charlestown building that I have because I'm a sociopath and I have fucking everything of IWA because I was the one that was keeping everything and I was the crazy person that was hitting up Patty and saying, "Can you go dig out another box of tapes? I'm ready for another box."
Right. So please tune in when you see these available on IWTV. I'll be tweeting the hell out of it. Prophet of Ash will tweet when he's actually got time to tweet on it to get some people to tune into those. Please watch it. Um, Thank you very much to IWTV for giving me this opportunity. The idea actually came from Dave Prazak. So thank you, Dave Prazak, for coming up with the idea and for IWTV finally accepting. It wasn't an immediate yes, but we got to a yes eventually. So that's
You're
the
the
only
first podcast ever.
that's the most important thing is that it came to a yes. So follow me on Twitter and Instagram at jfannin73. Listen to this on Spotify, iHeart. Watch it on IWTV. You can go ahead and watch it on YouTube if you can't afford the IWTV subscription. Watch it on YouTube, but you're going to miss out on that great experience of actually having the extra footage added in, where it's going to be better than just having to look at me and Jeremy's face for 3 hours as you watch this. We might actually have a few matches that we talked about to throw in there. My next booking on a show as of right now is Saturday, May the 23rd for Wrestle Arts back at Irving Theater in Indianapolis. Connor Hopkins, the newest member of the Fannin family, he's going for that Triple Crown Smashed Burger indie title in Wrestle Arts against David Ali. So we won that title shot in the 2 out of 3 falls match against Braden Lee just this past weekend, the show that we were talking about. And we're going to get that title shot on the very next show, which is Saturday, May the 23rd. So there's a lot of time between now and then, plenty of weekend opportunities for other shows to come along and book me and Connor. You can either email me at bookjimfannin@gmail.com, or you can reach out and message Connor on all of his socials. And we hope to do business with you. And we're going to see you next time on the next episode of Fannin's Flashbacks. So let it be written. So let it be done. Good day.